It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. You do. From the Dixie Line Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host John Riley. This podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Build it. Fix it. We guarantee you will like it in 2025, thanks to Dixie Line Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. We survived the weekend. There are not enough hours in the day to cover all this. We're going to try to get it done because we do sports talk the way it should be done. But we got all things baseball and spring training. We got the first day of NFL free agency. We have staggered through, and neither one of us got traded. The NHL trade deadline, and we got March Madness right at the doorstep. Holy cow, how you doing?
I'm doing great. March is a fantastic sports month, and Saturday was actually a great San Diego sports day.
Yeah, we're going lots of different directions. Just a couple of business notes. If you like sports, I urge you to stay with us during the course of the podcast because we do something that nobody else does. If you like sports, when we're done with the topics on the table, we turn it over to you. It's called Fans Forum, and you get the chance to be online with us. John, how does it work?
So Fans Forum is your chance to get involved. You have a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, just type it in the live chat on YouTube, X, or on Facebook. We'll get you involved. If you use the YouTube Super Chat feature, throw a couple of bucks at it, we'll move you to the top of the line.
And we also remind you, check my website. I write on it every day. You won't believe the volume of information that's on the website, leehacksawhamilton.com. You can pick page. All things baseball, it's right there. You like the NBA and the chase for the playoffs? There. You're a big NFL free agent football fan? Those are your updates. You want a recap of the NHL trade deadline? It's all there. You pick whatever topic you want or read the whole thing. You give me 5 minutes. I'll tell you every story there is in the world of sports. That's on the website at leehacksawhamilton.com. We want you to also join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. When you go to the website, there's a big orange box right on the homepage. Fill that out. You'll get onto our email list for all the bonus stuff that we send you. Also want you on social media. I want you, not Elon Musk, I want you to be part of Twitter All-Star Team. Just type in my handle at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. Therefore, you'll know when I put something up on X on social media. And we want you to share and subscribe in your Rolodex. Email everybody. Tweet them. Tell them Hacksaw's back. What we do on Mondays at 1:30, what we do on Thursdays at 1:30 with this very unique and very different and very bleeping successful podcast.
Do you still have a Rolodex? You know, like the thing on your desk that you would roll with business cards
probably.
on it?
They know what I'm saying. Shut up. Just because you're an electronic guru. Anyhow, go to your Rolodex. Tell everybody what we're doing on the podcast. And we want you to subscribe on the YouTube channel because when you do that, you will automatically get the alerts every time we put additional stuff up on the YouTube channel in addition to the podcast. Wise ass. So we're going lots of different directions. John, ready, set, go. What do you want to talk about?
Okay. I mean, the Lakers, they lose the game and LeBron.
Yeah, let's start with NBA basketball. Lakers got a taste of reality. Lakers stepped into the real world. The Lakers got whacked, got battered by the Boston Celtics. And then they lose the game and they lose LeBron James with a strained groin. This is an injury that has now reappeared. It obviously occurred very early on. LeBron's going to be out a week to 2 weeks minimum. It's a big blow. Of course, they're also already reeling because they don't have Rui Hachimura, who's got knee problems, and Jackson Hayes has been slow to recover from knee problems. You know, you watch Laker basketball in the game in Boston, you saw stretches where you say, damn, they can really play well together. When you saw the creativeness of Luka and LeBron together. And then you see stretches, you say, how the hell is this thing falling apart? They're not playing very well together. I mean, it was stunning. Luka wound up with 34. LeBron went down in the final couple minutes. He wound up with 22. But at one stretch, they had the Celtics run off 16 points in a row. In another stretch, Boston outscored them 19-2. And then it was a stretch in which the Lakers went 13 possessions without a basket at all. So which is the real Laker team? The one plays well in big-time spurts or the one that kind of staggers and struggles out there? And schedule doesn't get any easier. You know, after they watched Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown go off for a combined 71 in the bad Friday loss in Boston, now they get Brooklyn tonight, but they're really shorthanded. Then they got to go to Milwaukee, and then obviously they got to go to Denver. So this is a really tough road trip for Laker basketball. And I hate to throw cold water on people right at the start of the week on this Monday podcast. I know you're excited about Laker basketball and the potential, and we've seen the flashes of how good they can be. Let us also be truthful. Do you think this Laker team in any way matches up to that Cleveland Cavaliers team, which has got 54 wins, or the Oklahoma City team that's got 54 wins? So jump on board. Lakers Line fans are involved. Tough setback, beginning of a long road trip, lose the game, and lose LeBron, which I think is a big blow because strained groins don't heal overnight, and then there's always the risk of it reoccurring again. Are you going to shoot a three-point shot and hit a basket, or are you going to bang it off the iron and clank it?
Just a couple of crazy thoughts. Like, first of all, the Lakers have been rolling, and then suddenly this. And I saw, in the game, there was the moment where Luka got the ball stolen. I think it was it Jaylen Brown that stole it?
Multiple times.
Yeah, and then he does the alley-oop to Al Horford, who does the slam dunk, and then like posterizes LeBron in the process or slams down on him. So, I mean, it was a tough go for the Lakers. But you know what's funny? Whenever I hear of an athlete that has a groin injury, like, you ever watch Cheers back in the 80s? And remember when Sam Malone was on the local Boston TV and he brought out his boombox and he designed a rap song around groin injury? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Or did you see that?
I think so.
So I always remember that piece.
So that's where we are with the Lakers. I'm looking for somebody. Join me on the Lakers Line Fans Forum. You're excited. A lot of us really think LeBron and Luka. It's a great combo. But are you comparing Laker basketball to what Cleveland and Oklahoma City are at this hour in the NBA? Feel free to join us. Fans Forum chat box is open. I'm looking for a Laker Line contributor. We're not done with basketball. Next topic, John.
Yeah, let's talk about a little local hoops here. San Diego State, UCSD-USD.
Boy, we got a lot of stories to talk about. Aztecs are going to the Mountain West Conference tournament upbeat. Aztecs finished 21-8 regular season, a little bit of streaky 21-8. It's a 21-8 team with a very, very young roster. It's a 21-8 team that hopes to have Magoon Gwath back for Thursday's first-round game when they play Boise State. I don't know that they need him to play against Boise State. I'd much rather see him sit and maybe be ready for the championship game if they get to the championship game, or sit and protect him and get him ready actually for March Madness, because the Aztecs, if they survive this tournament, are going to be at the back end of the top 64. You got to have Gwath if they're going to go forward and play. But they destroyed a Nevada team. Steve Alford just lost all of his players this year, either transferred out or they got hurt, and they were a shell of a team. They got killed. They were down 22 in the first half. It was just monstrously bad. So the Aztecs, they're going to play Thursday, Mountain West Conference. They should win that game against Boise with or without the big guy. Then we'll see what happens in the second game if they get to play in the championship game in Mountain West. But I would handle Magoon Gwath with kid gloves right now in terms of the injury. UCSD, what a phenomenal season. 28-4. Bombs away.
Yeah.
I've never seen a three-point shooting team in college basketball like this three-point shooting team. Now, they have not played a great schedule. They're going to have to play real people once they get through the Big West tournament. By the way, they are the number one seed, which means they sit out the first two rounds and they get to play in the semis and then maybe the championship game on Saturday. UCSD deserves to be in the NCAA tournament. I don't see anybody sidetracking them in the Big West tournament. What a phenomenal year. I guess a sidebar question. I like that coach. I respect that coach. That coach has done a hell of a job in terms of accessing players. Can UCSD keep that coach? That's a big question. Is people going to come knocking at the door wanting to hire Eric Olson away? University of San Diego, what misery. Did you ever have a toothache? You ever have root canal surgery? That's what Torero's basketball was like this year. 6-27. I felt so bad for Steve Lavin because that's a good coach, good man. Tough situation. Lost all of his players in the transfer portal. It was obvious to me with the start of the season and this new landscape in college basketball. USD has just not given him the financial support to create true NIL money. Now they say the new athletic director is going to make a move in that direction. He had a lot of young kids. He force-fed everybody. Somehow Steve Lavin has to find a way to get into the transfer portal and find unique individuals who are going to come to USD to get a really good degree and, by the way, play basketball. He's got to be able to keep all the kids he force-fed. And he's got some talent there, but they're all freshmen. Got to keep them and add to them. And USD needs to step back and look in the mirror at themselves. Are you doing enough in today's landscape to support this Division I coach in this Division I program? And the last one is about the West Coast Conference. They held meetings on Friday, the athletic directors and the West Coast Conference, and they have reformulated their revenue sharing plan. And they've come up with a bonus package that the teams that do really well on the West Coast Conference, in other words, get to the tournament, go a couple rounds in, are going to get bonus units in addition to what they normally earn for themselves and for the conference from what they do in NCAA tournament play. And result they're doing is because they're trying to keep St. Mary's from defecting. St. Mary is right there trying to make a decision. They're standing right on the street corner. Do I stay in the West Coast Conference, or do I accept an offer when the offer comes to be like Gonzaga and go to the new look Pac-12 as a basketball-only member? That's the genesis of why the West Coast Conference did what they did Friday, to vote to allow somebody like St. Mary's, like they did for Gonzaga when the Zags were developing their program, give them bonus units for multiple appearances in the NCAA tournament. So interesting to see what St. Mary's and Randy Bennett does. Do they stay small potatoes, or do they join Gonzaga as a basketball-only member of the Pac-12 conference? So a lot of things churning in college basketball. John Riley, you're talking to me about the Aztecs and the decision. You're talking to me about the Tritons. Your reaction to what's happening in the other hill at USD, or what's not happening, and what does St. Mary's do? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Well, just real quick on St. Mary's. You know, the head coach, Randy Bennett, is a UC San Diego alumni.
Good guy.
Good guy, man. And so he's had a long run there, you know, and he's done a great job. He had that pipeline to Australia. Steve Lavin needs to develop something like that at USD, and I think there could be hope. But if St. Mary's defects, goes to the Pac-12, then the West Coast Conference is kind of a shell of itself. Hopefully there's enough to keep it going. But
if it's a shell of itself and Steve Lavin is the point man for USD with some additional resources and go and get more players, then maybe USD becomes the flag carrier of the conference.
It could be. I remember Johnny D.
Sure.
You know, corner threes. He was terrific. There's been some good players there. And I just want to go down this list here. San Diego State, they just decided to play where they're supposed to play, didn't they? They just decided we're going to go and hustle. We're going to play defense. BJ Davis was swarming the point guards coming up. I mean, the whole thing was a fabulous display. They can prove they can win without Magungwa.
But that's, again, substandard teams.
Agreed. So it gives you some confidence going into this tournament in Vegas. I still think the Aztecs, if Guath is back, they can go all the way and win this thing. I think it's definitely possible. So I'm excited right now. The Aztecs are trending up at just the right time.
Hope the big man can play. If they're not sure, I wouldn't play him.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to jeopardize his health, but you got to give it up for Miles Heide. I mean, hit three-pointer, his first in his collegiate career, 14 points. The dude has got all the big man. George Mikan moves down low. He's made giant progress. It's just so good to see, you know, and even Pharaoh Compton, I mean, was alive in that Nevada game. It was great. I mean, it was fun.
Well, they have the potential to be really, really good. If Guath is there, they could be really good and play Aztec brand of basketball. But we'll just have to wait and see what Thursday brings, what Friday brings, what Saturday brings. They don't know. He is still questionable because he's not practiced. All he's doing is standing and shooting stationary threes. He did run on the weekend on a treadmill for the first time. No setbacks that we know of at this point. But he's got to practice because he's been off a good 2 weeks. So he's not even basketball ready. So we'll see what this week is.
Are we talking about practice?
That's right. In this case, damn right we are.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, so you're into college basketball.
Wait, we got to talk about my Tritons.
What's there to talk about?
Don't wrap it up. No.
Bombs away.
No, so this is historic what the Tritons are doing.
You only walk down this road one time.
Yeah, I mean, they first of all, they should have been national champs in D2 a few years ago, got canceled by COVID. First year of a D1 eligibility, they won the conference regular season. They're poised to win the Big West tournament. But my question to you, Lee, is do you see any scenario where the Big West would have two teams into March Madness?
It would be a reach. A whole bunch of other things would have to happen. Some named teams that were on the bubble would have to fall off the bubble. But no, I don't see that happening because the Big West is not a power conference per se. But hey, you can't shine a negative light on the Tritons. They're going to win this thing, and they're going to be sitting here 30-4 on Selection Sunday. So the question is, what kind of bracket do they go to? Where are they seated? Are they a 10th seed? Are they 11th? I think they should go and will go. Although that being said, last year there was somebody who had 32 wins got left out. Some lower Division I team, I don't know, somebody from Indiana that had 32 wins and did not get in.
That's nuts. So you know what's interesting is back in the 80s when I was a student at UCSD, people thought of San Diego State at the time as like a really good athletic program, and academics were just kind of good, solid. And UCSD, on the other hand, was elite academically, but its sports program was sort of an afterthought, and UCSD used to kind of pride itself on not being a Division I school because we don't need all these scholarship aloof guys. This is an academic university. It's got to be rigorous. Well, what's happened over the past 40 years is San Diego State's academics have come way up. And now San Diego State is an R1 research university. The athletic program's made a big jump. And then UCSD is finally, they're trying to be best in all classes, in all dimensions, academics, research, athletics, everything that UCSD does. Now they want to be number one.
They've done a phenomenal job. I never thought their decision to go Big West was the right decision because Big West schools recruit a really different type of kid.
Totally.
Heavy JUCO transfers and all that. But what Eric Olson's done is amazing. Sidebar comment. You got into UCSD. You know what? I look at you and I take that statement and I say, Bronny James, legacy selection. How the hell did you get into UCSD?
Well, I'll tell you what, if I took my high school diploma and grades and SAT score, I couldn't get in now. I mean, it's like really hard to get in. So my degree is like a fine wine. It gets better as it ages.
That's not what some people are saying about you on this podcast, but that's okay. So listen, all things basketball. I'm looking for first timers to jump on board. Hey, Fans Forum chat box is open. Hit a 3-point shot. You want to talk about some of those other topics on the table. We're going from hoops. We're going to talk Major League Baseball. Boy, there's a lot to cover here.
Yeah, a lot going on. How about the Padres? Some good, some bad.
Padres are sitting there. This is hard to believe at 2-11-1 in spring training. Some good, lots of bad. Actually, the record is 3-11-1. They've not had a really good spring. Nobody's hitting at all. And now some of the pitching has started to get lit up, and that's got to be a little bit of concern. They went to spring training looking for a left fielder, looking for a catcher, obviously looking for pitching depth, and obviously having to rebuild the entire bench. They don't have answers to a hell of a lot of questions. And John, we got 2 weeks left in the Cactus League, and they don't have answers. And they've been playing all these guys in these exhibition games. Gavin Sheets, outside of an occasional home run, isn't doing anything. Last I checked, was hitting about 125. Eggy Rosario, who's had flashes in which he's played pretty well for the Padres, not hitting very well either. They need to figure out what position. Jason Hayward at one point was 0 for 12, finally got a base hit, finally drove in a run. My burning question about Jason Hayward, he stands for a lot of really good things being a veteran, as he lost his bat speed. Oscar Gonzalez has actually had a good spring training. This is a guy, though, that the Yankees let go as a super utility outfielder. Cleveland did not keep him either, but he's had a good spring here. So does he stay the course? Does he stay here? The big concern, Matt Waldron gets battered for the second start in a row. Now, Waldron came out of the bullpen yesterday. He just had no ability to control the knuckleball, whereas he did in his first 2 appearances. Bad the third appearance, and just miserable yesterday. Inning and 2/3, 6 runs, 4 hits, 4 walks, 4 wild pitches, and a hit batsman. Matt Waldron's earned run average right now is 8.68. I don't know what they're going to do except maybe break camp and put him in the bullpen, because obviously At this point, you can't trust him as a number 5 starter. That's a bit of a surprise. So the Padres have still got, like I say, 2 weeks of Cactus League games. But, John, they haven't answered any questions at all about bench bunch and about left field and about which of these guys hitting 0.00 or 118 or 189 is going to be the starting catcher. You're a fan. Cause for concern?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of concern, but every spring training, unless you're the Los Angeles Dodgers, every spring training has its ups and downs and its pros and cons. We knew going in, we didn't know if we got a left fielder. Now the Profar is gone and none of those guys are hitting, but you got to think, Connor Joe would be like a natural guy. I mean, he's hitting, maybe he's sucking the least of a lot of the new bats.
He's in the 230s.
Yeah, exactly. The other guys are hitting under 100 or under 200. Hayward, I think he's going to be better as, a bench guy, a late inning defensive replacement,
a clubhouse
guy. You kind of mix him in a little bit for occasional starts, but you can't really expect a lot of hitting because that's been on a downward slide for a number of years.
Exactly. So that's where we are as it relates to the Padres. Like I say, 2 weeks to go, but I don't see any answers to any questions.
There is some answers. Stephen Kolek has looked pretty good, and then what's the guy's name? He's the lefty that came from Korea.
Well, he pitched in a rain-shortened game, Kyle Hart.
Yeah, Kyle Hart.
But he's going to have a start against somebody and be good. So right now, in a rain situation in which he threw 2 innings before the rains came, that's not a big foundation of information to build on.
No, it's not, but at least it's progress in the right direction rather than the wrong direction. I think Waldron, he's that knuckleball. It's just so weird because he is only effective when that works.
And it can play the fastball and everything else off what he throws with the knuckler.
So, I mean, I don't know how I think it seems like the more you overthink the knuckleball as a pitcher, probably the more it goes awry.
That was a bad 1 2/3 innings, though. I think you would admit.
Yes.
Holy cow.
It was very bad.
Okay, so that's all things Padres baseball. That fans forum chat box is open. You concerned here? I mean, or should we just shut our mouth and wait till we get to opening day? I need answers to questions from Padre fans because I haven't seen the answers on the field so far in the Cactus League. We go from that to the next team that everybody's talking about.
The LA Dodgers pitching manager updates.
Yeah, let's talk about the Dodgers. This is not a surprise, but the Dodgers have hit the pause button on Shohei Ohtani pitching. They pulled him off his bullpen workouts. Now he had 4 workouts, was clocked at 97 in his last bullpen session, but they're reeling him back. No physical injuries. They're reeling him back because there's an intensity level to get ready as a pitcher. They don't want that intensity level on the mound. They want him to be fully focused, and there's a different intensity level to be a designated hitter every day of the week in terms of the wear and tear factor and the stress. Ohtani is strictly, as of this morning, concentrating strictly as being the designated hitter and hitting at the top of the Dodger batting order. Good news, Bobby Miller threw 6 batters live batting practice. He, of course, got hit in the head weeks ago and had a concussion. He struck out 3, did not give up any hits at all. He looked pretty good. Next thing is to get him in to a Cactus League exhibition game. A little bit concerned about Dustin May. Got whacked in his last outing. They don't think he's ready to be in the rotation. They think maybe they will let him go be the long guy in the bullpen. He still has options left, but they think they want to keep their hands on him and let him be a long reliever at least to the start of the season. Tony Gonsolin has put together back-to-back really impressive outings. He's not really given up a run yet, so Gonsolin's kind of pushed himself into the chase for starting rotation job. Hyesung Kim, the Korean infielder, he's got a home run, got a couple of hits, but he's hitting in the 160s. They have met with his agent, and they're talking about sending Kim to Oklahoma City to start the major league season. He's really struggling with velocity, just like Hyesung Kim, the Padres Korean shortstop, struggled with velo his first year in the major leagues. Hyesung Kim is struggling with the exact same thing with the velocity, just not getting around on balls. Plus, they're kind of retooling his stance and where the bat placement is. So he may go to AAA to start the season, a bit of a surprise. The Dodgers were just wrecked by pitching injuries and surgeries last year, and it started all over again. Michael Grove, top young guy, slated to either be at the end of the bullpen rotation or start at Oklahoma City, gone for the year. Torn labrum surgery. So the surgeries continue to mount up for Dodger baseball there. And then there's the manager, Dave Roberts. We think they're going to announce before the end of the week. Dave Roberts' contract extension will be a record number of years and a record almost $9 million per season.
Wow.
Now, Dave Roberts, 2 World Series rings, all those first-place finishes in the National League West, a composite record of 860 wins over the course of his career, best winning percentage of any major league manager, period, exclamation point, in Dodger history, going all the way back to Ebbets Field, all the way back to the 1920s. $9 million a year for Dave Roberts.
Cool.
So that's all things as we are with Dodger baseball as of this hour. And by the way, Blake Snell, slow start.
I saw that.
7.71 ERA.
Yeah, here we go.
This is Blake Snell being Blake Snell early in the season. Geez, I hope that doesn't translate into a crummy start at the start of the season. He's not going to pitch the opening series in Japan. He'll pitch when they get back here to Dodger Stadium the first week of the regular season. That's all things Dodger baseball, John.
I love Blake Snell. I want him to be successful, even if Dodger blue. But it just seems like with Ohtani as a pitcher, they just had to prove that he could pitch, without any pain, that the surgery went well, that he can get the velo at max velocity. And I think he checked all the boxes, right? So they just kind of take their time with these guys. And if they've got 9 or 10 potential starters, they can kind of get everyone in the mix the first half of the season. But then when you get, into the dog days and into the stretch, then you're going to have Ohtani pitching every 5th day. Then you're going to have all your guys going. I mean, the Dodgers are just blessed with all of these assets.
Could you ever imagine in your lifetime we'd be talking about Dave Roberts, best manager in the history of baseball, with a $9 million a year contract?
Local boy does good, and I remember back in the day, where was he originally? I obviously had that great moment with the Red Sox where he flipped up the 04 ALCS
stolen base.
And then, the stolen base that changed it all in the 9th inning. And then
he was the Padres prior to that, way back. He was with the Cleveland Indians.
That's who I wanted to talk about when he was at the Indians, because I remember when he was coming to the Dodgers, when he was coming to the Padres, I think it was Coach John Quintero was talking a lot about him. He says, Vista High School, great guy, good character, really fast, plays the outfield, good leadoff guy, good character guy. And when he came to the Padres, I was like, right on, a local boy, here he is. And he proved he did well. He coached here for the Padres, didn't manage, which I think is a whole other controversy, but I'm just happy that he's being recognized for all of the value he brings to the table, because he's not just a ball player. He's got, high baseball IQ.
Oh, exactly. Controlling clubhouses, dealing with personalities, rich personalities who sometimes don't listen, AKA Manny Ramirez and some of those guys. He was just a trustworthy veteran baseball player who played the game. Everybody's got to have 25 man on their roster. And so he was in the middle of the roster. But boy, as a manager, he's excelled. He's gone from an intellectual standpoint to places I don't think anybody ever thought he would be as a director of the whole symphony. What he's done at Dodger Stadium is just amazing. And you can bark at Dodger ownership and the amount of money they spend and their history and tradition, but you got to manage that. And you got to push the right buttons. And more times than not, he's done very well. And when he hasn't, and people have been standing in the line knocking to the door wanting him to be fired, that's a byproduct of not just him or the players who failed him, but it's a byproduct of what happened upstairs. They kept sending memos down, do this, do that. The guys, the statistical guys who mandated all certain game situations, and Dave had to follow through with the recommendations. And sometimes the analytics did not work out, but it's amazing. I mean, this baseball lifer, he's about to become a $9 million a year manager, probably.
Yeah, right on. And by the way, do you think when they're sending messages during the game, they're probably text messaging, right?
No.
But I never see the coaches on phones, or are they even allowed to have?
No, I don't think you're not allowed to have that active stuff.
So it's like someone passing down paper notes,
Well, there's a game plan when they go to a clubhouse meeting. This is the structure of what we think you should do.
But like in the 7th inning, would ever he get a note saying?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
But it's all predicated.
Yeah, it's like he's got it's almost like Bill Walsh in the first 10 plays of the game.
Scripted.
Scripted. Yeah.
Okay, all things Dodgers, Dodger fans. Where are you? Join us. Pro, con, complimentary, critical. Fans forum chat box is open. Let's talk Angel baseball.
Yeah, Angels searching for answers.
You know, I counted, they've signed 28 street free agents, if you will. I mean, they were a very active team. You know, it started with the acquisition of the bat, Jorge Soler from Atlanta. And he's come in and he's had himself a good spring. And it just continued through the course of the offseason. Well, as we sit here with 2 weeks to go in the Cactus League, Tim Anderson was a highly regarded shortstop, second baseman, third baseman in Miami, wound up with the White Sox, got hurt the last couple of years, tailed off badly. Tim Anderson is hitting like 290 now for the Angels. Wow. And, of course, they need a shortstop because Zach Neto is not ready to open the season coming off shoulder surgery. So that's been, so far, a positive acquisition. Tim Anderson indicated he went home to Florida and rebuilt all his mechanics at home plate. Now, he's hitting much better now than he hit in the last 2.5 years. Kyle Hendricks, strong, couple of 3 starts so far for the Halos. He's the ex-Chicago Cub. It's taken him 2 years to get totally back and totally healthy. Kevin Newman's played well, multi-positions. Travis d'Arnaud has been very trustworthy behind home plate and a little bit at first base. He'll be the backup to the catcher, Logan O'Hoppe. So they've got a minimal number of veterans that they've added in the offseason that so far have done very well in the spring and have all had success in the major leagues. Here's a surprise name. He's a draft pick. His name is Jack Kashanowitz. He has yet to give up a run in spring training, and he pitched well in the final month of last season when the Angels sent him out there when the season was unraveling. He may have pitched himself back into this rotation with Reed Detmer. So they needed depth. You know, they got Kikuchi from Toronto and Houston. He's going to be at the front of the rotation with Tyler Anderson. But if indeed Kashanowitz is the real deal, and so far nobody's beat him up in spring, and he pitched well at the end of last season, suddenly it looks like they've got some pitching here for opening day. So Angels are a work in progress, but some of the guys who've gone after, I think, have done pretty well.
Yeah, I thought Tim Anderson was done. I thought his career was over. So the fact that he's resurrected himself, yeah, good on him. You know, he's a good guy. And then the other question I had for you is, remember in the offseason, we were talking about how Trout wasn't going to play center field. You know, he was going to probably DH more to kind of protect him from injury. So
he's playing right field right now because Soler is designated hitting.
Okay.
And Mike's had a good spring. I think he was hitting about 295 as of the weekend.
Well, okay, probably less wear and tear in right field than in center. But who's going to play center? Have they figured that one out yet?
Well, it's got to be either Moniak or Joe Adell, and those guys aren't hitting worth a lick. That's a shocker to me. How could you be a number 1 draft pick and be in pro ball 6 years maybe? Moniak's hitting 118.
Yeah.
And Odell's got power. He's not hitting for average. He strikes out as much as he does anything else. One of those guys is going to wind up being their starting center fielder, at least at the get-go.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Moniak, local guy. I want to see him do well. And by the way, you kicked off this segment talking about Angels street free agents. This goes back to the hacksaw vernacular. And I love that because when you say street free agents, I know immediately what you mean. Unemployed. But yeah, are there other kinds of free agents according to you and your?
Well, there's star free agents, the type that Arte Moreno no longer bids on. Yes, but street free agents are guys who've been out there and guys who are veterans who've had bad seasons, weren't re-signed, or guys have injury history, not re-signed. Tim Anderson is a prime choice. He was a really good infielder with Miami and then went to the White Sox in a trade and then proceeded to get hurt 2 years in a row, and his numbers just dropped off the face of the earth. And as you would say, it looked like he was done. Well, so far, so good. We'll see.
I think it was the other way around. Didn't he start with the White Sox and then we finish with the Marlins? Because I remember they had that game in the cornfield, like Field of Dreams, and it was the White Sox wearing the old Black Sox jerseys. And I remember Tim Anderson was one of those guys.
He did well early. We'll just have to see how this goes. Last topic here before we get to halftime, baseball news, and it's not good.
No, I've heard a little bit about this.
Let's start with the New York Yankees. Garrett Cole, the ace of the staff, who missed 3 months last season with nerve damage in his elbow, took him forever to rehab, re-injured the elbow, felt unbelievable discomfort. Garrett Cole has now come to the West Coast to meet with Dr. Neil L. Atrache, who does all the reconstructive surgeries. They've done MRIs. They're of the opinion that Garrett Cole probably needs Tommy John replacement surgery, which would wipe him out this season and probably spill into next season. That's devastating for the Yankees to lose the ace of their staff. He's a horse. Also, Giancarlo Stanton, who's had injuries to both of his elbows, is now possibly facing elbow surgery for acute tendonitis or bone chips. He could be gone for at least half the baseball season. They are just reeling right now. The Yankees are, if you lose Garrett Cole. Now, grant you, they did sign Max Fried, and they do have Marcus Stroman, and they do have Carlos Rodon, and they have Clark Schmidt, who's recovering from surgery. But none of those guys, Fried included, are they equal to Garrett Cole. So this is devastating news for the Yankees. In Atlanta, scare. Jurickson Profar plays left field with gusto. He runs into walls, he goes over walls, he dives for balls. He injured his wrist. They feared he had dislocated his wrist over the weekend. MRI came back this morning clean. He's got a sprained ligament. He does not have a fracture. He did not tear anything, but he's going to miss probably the rest of spring training. Ooh, take a deep breath that he did not get hurt. Orioles, man, they had so many things going well for them last year, and now they're facing the start of the season without their best player. Gunnar Henderson, the shortstop, the power-hitting shortstop, he's got an oblique injury that's not healing very quickly. He's probably going to miss the start of the season. Now you add into that, they've got other injuries. They have lost one of their starting pitchers. That's a big issue. They've lost their closer, Andrew Kittredge, who needs knee surgery. All of a sudden, the Orioles are just kind of staggering because they've lost their top everyday guy. They lost one of their frontline starting pitchers, and they lost one of their closers. So that's not good news there. And if it's not, not bad news for the New York Mets, I'll just throw this in there because we had talked extensively about the Mets situation, losing Frankie Montas and then losing Sean Manaea. So they're down 2 of their 5 starters already. Now they lose their catcher, Francisco Alvarez, gone 8 weeks, fractured hamate bone in his hand. So you go to spring training looking for answers. Go to spring training crossing your fingers, hope you don't get anybody hurt. And boy, some of these teams are reeling. This story with the Yankees, I think, is devastating.
Yeah, it's tough. Tommy John is a tough way to go for Garrett Cole. Let's hope it works out. But that's going to open up trade possibilities. I know the Padres are part of those rumors. But I want to talk about Giancarlo Stanton because doesn't he seems like he's always hurt.
Yep.
Okay. And he's obviously got massive power, and he's got kind of a funky stance in the batting in the batter's box. I always think of him like a droid from Star Wars movies where he's a droid that's like a little bit like the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz, where he needs a little bit of oil in the joints to get everything to work. Because
there's a hitch there. You say, how does he hit with that kind of?
Yeah, exactly. And so then I have this vision in my head that he's walking around this house with like his hands like this because his elbows won't move.
Elbows, have double surgery, and one injury is different than the other. He's had 3 plasma plate injections in 2 weeks, which is not a good sign. So they're talking about surgery. They're talking at least half the season, if not longer than that. And he's never been able to stay healthy. He was a superstar in the making with the Miami Marlins, and then he gets to New York, and he's had one injury after another. He did have a good fall. What he did in postseason was pretty doggone impressive. That being said, this is a new year, and he's not going to be here at the start of the new season, if at all. So Yankees are really staggered.
They are. Yeah. It's a tough go for them, but the AL is weak compared to the NL. So they'll probably be okay. Profar's injury, did you see how he went for the ball? He seemed like he mistimed it. He kind of got out ahead of the ball, and then his hand had to come back, and that's why it buckled under.
And he did that a lot with the Padres. He made some miraculous catches in left field, but I said, he's going to hurt his shoulder. He's going to hurt his wrist going down and having the glove catch and the full weight of his body snap on him. He never got hurt here, but he got hurt there.
I just want Profar to have a solid 3 years of consistent baseball to prove value for that contract he signed with the Braves, because he's a great guy. He deserves the money, but he's had so much of a checkered history.
We'll see where it goes. That's the latest on baseball. Hey, we get to halftime. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. Does not matter what the project is, Dixie Line has the materials. And if you're looking for ideas, Dixie Line will be glad to be your consultant. They'll make some recommendations along the way. What I want you to do is just go to DixieLine.com, their website, scroll through it and see all the services that Dixie Line offers, because they deal not only with the homeowners, they deal with the contractors too. This is a big company that San Diego has relied on a long time, John.
Yeah, terrific guys there. And we pulled this video up for them, and it's about countertops. So let's look like a real short video.
There's some of our selection of countertops here, and as we come around the corner, we'll find different manufacturers showing off their full spectrum of offerings. And we come around the other side, you'll see even more of them. And then every one of these drawers is filled with even more samples. So I guess the lesson is that whatever it is that you're looking for, we have it.
Yeah, so, we got Dixie Line has got consultants in all their offices. They'll help you design your kitchen, your bath, cabinets, countertops, all the faucetry, all the plumbing. They've got it all if you're remodeling your home.
The Showcase store, just do a quick, where is that located for people?
It's called Design Studio. It's in Solana Beach, right off of Loma Santa Fe. And there's a Dixie Line lumber yard and home center there. And then kind of kitty corner in the shopping center is the Design Studio. And that is where you're dealing with interior designer level employees that can make recommendations on all these really high-end brands for, the elite coastal homes in San Diego.
Dixie Line, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Again, just go to DixieLine.com, check out their website, see all the different things they've got to offer to you. We're at halftime as this podcast continues. Podcast brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers to serve you in San Diego. Build it, fix it, you will enjoy it in 2025, thanks to Dixie Line Lumber. Want to remind you, when we're done with all the topics on the table, we are opening this podcast up to you. It's called Fans Forum.
Yeah, Fans Forum is your chance to get involved. And by the way, we're noticing that our X live stream feed is not working today for some reason. So I know Fleagle kind of jumped in and alerted us of that. But if you're online right now on YouTube or Facebook, you could type in your comment or question. Just drop your take there. We've got a lot of other guys involved here. I mean, I see Gary and Callan, the Yo-Siders, Carlos, Mr. Smith, Gordon, Manny. I mean, Schickster is in here. David, our good friend Matthew, even Winnipeg Sports Radio is chiming in.
Fans Forum, join us because we'll be answering your questions, let you take shots, make statements. That's coming up right at the end of the podcast. Invite you to go to my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. I write sports on it every day of the week. It's their first thing every morning. You like sports? Give me 5 minutes. I'll tell you all the big stories. Or you just want to cherry pick off certain pages. I love baseball, or I love hockey, or I'm all things NFL. You can do that too on my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Join Hacksaw's Insiders Group right there, orange box on the homepage. Fill it out. You get on our email list. Want you to share, want you to subscribe. Tell everybody who we are, what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1:30. And if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, every time we post something up on that channel, you will get an alert. There's something new that you should consider. It's all part of what we do on social media. It's all John's fault. He's the one that introduced me to this, and we're filling this sucker up. Okay, John, let's go second half, because today was the beginning of the NFL football season off the field. And wow.
Yeah, quarterback derby names are flying in the news.
All right, let's go through this list of what's happened in the National Football League. This started over the weekend with the Seattle Seahawks. They traded Geno Smith, the quarterback, to the Raiders. Then they turned around and traded their wide receiver, their star wide receiver, DK Metcalf. He went to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They released Ty Little, their other wide receiver. In essence, have strip mined the whole thing. So it begged the question, who's going to want to go play in Seattle when they had no running game and he got rid of the top 2 wide receivers and their offensive line is skitterish? Well, the answer at 11 a.m. this morning is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold left the Minnesota Vikings. Sam Darnold signed a 3-year mega contract to go play for the Seattle Seahawks. He'll be the starting quarterback, but there's nothing left around him. So that's story 1. Story 2, the Raiders. Did they get the right guy? They trade for Geno Smith. Geno negotiated his way out of Seattle. Hawks sent him to the Raiders. He asked for $40 million. I'm not paying $40 million to a quarterback who had 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, a pile of fumbles, and took 50 sacks. The Raiders inherit that guy, Geno Smith. Would they have been better, the Raiders, to sign Aaron Rodgers rather than Geno Smith? Feel free to jump on board, talk about that. That being said, though, the Raiders still have 9 draft picks and over $100 million in cap space left to use in free agency. Third one, the New York Giants. Where are they going to go to get a quarterback? Because the quarterbacks are hopping off the board. Aaron Rodgers to the Giants might happen, which is really weird. But then again, why would Aaron Rodgers want to go to the Giants? That place is like 3 Mile Island. There's nothing left and nobody around. They don't have any players, skill players, to speak of. Then you got the New York Jets. The Jets letting Aaron Rodgers go. And how about this storyline? The Jets today, within the hour, signed Justin Fields, the Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback. He goes to the New York Jets on a 3-year, $60 million contract without having accomplished anything. That's a stunner. Indianapolis, they're looking for a young quarterback to confront Anthony Richardson, who has really staggered 2 years in a row. Quarterback they're talking to, Daniel Jones, the ex-Giant quarterback who finished up in Minnesota. Where does Minnesota go? How about this? Minnesota in on Aaron Rodgers at the last minute after Sam Darnold defected and went to Seattle. Minnesota talking to Aaron Rodgers about being a short-term rental up there, kind of like Brett Favre was when Brett Favre retired. Atlanta. This is weird. I mean, they committed to Michael Penix, the Washington Huskies quarterback. Kirk Cousins went to them a week ago and asked to be released. They said no. Now, he's supposed to make $27.5 million next season, and he has a $10 million roster bonus that's due. And it's being reported out of Atlanta. The Falcons have told him, we want you to be here and be our second quarterback. Maybe they don't trust what they see from Michael Penix. I don't know very many people would be willing to have a $37 million backup quarterback, but Atlanta, at least at this point, is willing to be that team. And then there's New Orleans, which is in salary cap hell till the day the world ends. New Orleans has just restructured quarterback Derek Carr again. New Orleans gets $30 million in cap savings, but in doing so, to give themselves breathing room to try to fix the rest of the franchise, Derek Carr is going to have a cap number of $69 million next season. I mean, with all the smart people in the NFL, you have to understand when you restructure somebody's contract, that means a credit card bill is pushed another year down the road. You're still going to pay that bill somewhere. $69 million cap figure for Derek Carr. Okay, so John, when you first heard, because I texted you about this whole Seattle scenario, them blowing their offense up, and all of a sudden this morning getting Sam Darnold, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's Darnold on a 3-year deal makes a little bit more sense than on like a 5 or a 6. It's still a gamble. But then I'm thinking Darnold, Geno Smith. I mean, is there a big difference? And then I think of Geno Smith when he was West Virginia, right? And then you go to the Jets.
That didn't work.
Well, yeah. And I remember everyone was just sort of meh on Geno Smith. He was like mid, maybe a little bit below average in the NFL. And you have a good game every once in a while. Then he goes to Seattle and he turned into a better quarterback. But then I still think of him as the old Geno Smith. And now he's going with the Raiders. But, you know, Tom Brady must have had something to do with this.
Yeah, concur. Interesting scenario there. And of all those transactions that we just talked about, is maybe the most stunning one, the Jets' amount of money they just gave Justin Fields, who hasn't been able to stay as a starter, neither in Chicago nor in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I don't think Justin Fields has proven that he can be an NFL passer, you know, because he's so erratic. So that one's weird too. I mean, there's all these sort of like, you know, you got your top 4 or 5 quarterbacks, and then you got like another tier of, I would say, 5 or 6 other kind of B-level guys. But Justin Fields is like C, 3rd tier or 4th tier. And he's getting what, 60 million for 3 years?
Yep.
20 million a year. That's unbelievable. Anthony Richardson, I'm rooting for him. I want him to be successful. But I remember they said that when he was drafted, he was just an athletic specimen, but his football IQ wasn't where it needed to be. And there was a lot of work he needed to put in.
All 47% completion rate and a ton of turnovers in 2 years, and he keeps getting hurt.
Yeah.
So that's the first page in our NFL notebook. If you're a football fan, feel free to pile in the Fans Forum chat box. You want to talk about one of those teams that we just talked about, because we're not done. Next page.
Yeah, we're not done. Okay, let's talk about some roster moves.
Let's talk about the Chargers. Chargers, of course, released Joey Bosa. He's a great player, not a Hall of Famer, not a $36 million a year guy. He's gone. Then they released Gus Edwards, one of their heavy-duty running backs, and now they just lost their starting defensive tackle because the Rams just jumped in and signed Poona Ford, the big wide-body defensive tackle, played pretty well for the Chargers. I don't know if they were asleep at the switch, whether they thought they had time to get him signed. The Rams just got Poona Ford. That's a big blow. And by the way, early on the weekend, the Rams signed Devontae Adams, who said he wanted to play West Coast. They jumped in and they would not let him off the Zoom call till he committed. Signed him to a 3-year contract. He reportedly was preparing to go meet the 49ers. He never got to San Francisco. Now, San Francisco did get somebody. They're talking to Joey Bosa. We're led to believe the negotiations are continuing. Bosa was in the Bay Area meeting with San Francisco yesterday. So that deal may come to fruition. In Buffalo, phenomenal acquisition. The Bills wind up making the deal to Josh Allen, restructure the contract. He is now the highest paid NFL player in terms of guaranteed money. He winds up getting 6 years, $330 million for Josh Allen. $250 million of that is guaranteed. To make room on a salary cap, the Bills said goodbye to probably future Hall of Fame linebacker Von Miller. And Buffalo is just really active in terms of free agency. Cleveland going to hell. This is amazing. They restructured down Deshaun Watson's contract. Deshaun Watson next year, because of the 3 restructures he's now done in Cleveland, his cap figure is going to be $92 million.
Oh, my God.
How can you operate a franchise with all these smart people in the front office and keep restructuring? First of all, how could you pay him the amount of money you paid him, then have to restructure to get yourself out of trouble, knowing there's $92 million at the end you're going to take a hit on?
I don't understand how that math works.
I don't either. And these are supposedly smart people. And then you recall 2 weeks ago, Myles Garrett said, I want to trade. I don't want to be part of rebuilding anymore. You know, he was tired of being 0-16 one year, 4-13 another. I want out. Then they came back to him and said, we asked you to restructure, give us cap space. He said no. Then on Sunday, they put more money on the table. I hate everything about Cleveland. I'll sign that contract. Myles Garrett signs his contract to stay with the Cleveland Browns after all the negative things he said. A 4-year extension at $40 million per once the last 2 years of the contract are up. Just absolutely stunning. I guess money can buy you anything in life. Houston Texans really active. They make a trade. This guy's a good player. Got to keep him on the field. They go get another wide receiver. Christian Kirk is a blazer. Now, he, had started in Arizona, did well, but got hurt. Went to Jacksonville, did well in spurts with Trevor Lawrence, got hurt again. He just got traded from Jacksonville to the Houston Texans. So Houston's got 4 receivers now, but they've all had injury issues. I tend to think that's a pretty good acquisition for the Houston Texans. Add into that, new leader in New England, Mike Vrabel. I knew they were going to spend their money, and they spent their money quick. On the first day of free agency, New England has signed Milton Williams, the bright young defensive tackle of the Philadelphia Eagles. They signed Raiders starting inside linebacker Robert Spillane. They just signed Carlton Davis, the Pro Bowl cornerback who played in Tampa Bay and played in Detroit. And they signed Morgan Moses, beast of a tackle with the New York Jets. All those guys are grinders. That's Mike Vrabel's brand of football. So what a fascinating first group of hours. Free agent window open at 9 a.m. All these commitments made in the first 3 hours of free agency. And like I said, when Matthew Stafford committed to the Rams to stay, that started the dominoes falling at quarterback. So, John, go ahead. Talk about one of those teams, all those teams.
Grinders, it's just fantastic. Okay. I remember the Patriots, they were having problems on their offensive line. Because I remember they were hesitant to start Drake May because they thought he was going to get hurt. And he did play well in spite of a kind of a leaky line.
Exactly. And that line finally got healthy at the end of the season. They have a lot of skilled people, but I guess the favorite phrases I'd use with Vrabel are grit and grime. That's what these players are all about. It's just there's a grit to the way these guys so he's changed the culture of New England. He spent a bunch of Bob Kraft's money in the first 3 hours of NFL free agency.
I like it when a team takes on the persona and the personality, of the head coach. Let's talk about Davante Adams. I mean, how old is he and how much gas does he have left in the tank?
32 years of age. Guy's got 690 receptions. No tail off in terms of productivity, even though he was in a bad situation with the Raiders and then wound up going to the New York Jets in probably a worse situation. Still really productive. He's not had an injury history, and he's coming home. He's from Fresno. So I think it's a great acquisition. Getting Davante Adams gives Matthew Stafford another weapon. So you got Davante and his big size on one side, and you got Puka Nacua on the other, and they got Tyler Higbee to throw balls to. I mean, this is hugely important for Matthew Stafford. Then, of course, they went out and they stole the Chargers' top defensive tackle in Poona Ford.
Wow. I mean, and that's a lot of receivers for Stafford to throw to. Yeah. I mean, suddenly he's looking in a good spot. But I didn't know Davante Adams was from Fresno. Is he did he go to Fresno State?
Yes, he was there with Derek Carr.
Oh.
And that's how I wound up with the Raiders. When Carr went to the Raiders, Davante said, I want out of Green Bay. And he wanted the Raiders. And, of course, then the Raiders got rid of Derek Carr. And then it was quarterback du jour, and that was a disaster.
Yeah, but, I'm just thinking, Central Valley, Fresno, Josh Allen, he's from that area. Yep. He's from Firebaugh. And, and just to think he only had one Division I scholarship offer at Wyoming, and now look where he is.
Yeah. Unbelievable contract, $330 million. Not bad for a Wyoming Cowboy.
Yeah, exactly. A guy that no one else really wanted in college football.
But it's opportunity. We all come from somewhere. He came from there. Look what he's developed into. It's cool. And Davante Adams, I think, is a really good receiver. A lot of these receivers in the league, we call them divas. They got personalities and they got agendas. Well, he's a bit of a diva, but he's a really good football player. I think a great short 2-year acquisition for the Rams. The Rams organization is doing a hell of a job in player personnel.
Yeah, but they wanted a scrambling quarterback, and they re-signed Matthew Stafford. So is this like a period of transition for the Rams until they get to that quarterback?
Stafford can still play. Is he a bridge quarterback going forward? Yeah, he's 37 years of age. But now the Rams could sit there and look at that draft board and say, I like the athleticism and the intelligence of this guy. We'll draft this guy, and he'll be our developmental quarterback for 2 years from now or 3 years from now when Matthew Stafford steps away.
Jackson Dart, is that a name maybe, like a developmental guy?
Maybe, although he might go earlier than anybody expects. But yeah, the kid from Syracuse, Kyle McCord, is a gun, but he's undersized. He does move the pocket. We'll see on draft day once we get into April. I bet the Rams find an athlete that they say, we kind of like this, and we got 2 years to grow this thing and develop this thing with maybe this kid quarterback. So
good.
But what they hear now, what they're doing from a player standpoint, very, very impressive. You're into the NFL. Feel free to jump on board. Want to hear what you've got to say, whether it's the Chargers, the Raiders, the Rams, whatever NFL team. Fans Forum chat box is open. Couple of more topics on the table. We're changing sports.
We are. We're talking a little NHL and even SDFC. And some of the online listeners are saying, what? No soccer talk?
Let's talk about this. Hockey. NHL trade deadline, the end of the week. All-time record, 54 trades made at the NHL trading deadline. Tell you what, in Carolina, they got a lot of explaining to do. They made a big trade in November to get Mika Rantanen, 40-goal scorer from Colorado. He was in the last year of his contract. They traded for him, and they couldn't get him to sign an extension. He turned down $13 million. He had asked for $14 million from Colorado and said, no, we're not trading you more than we're paying Nathan McKinnon. So they traded him to Carolina. Hurricane couldn't get him signed. They turned around and traded him to Dallas. Dallas signed him immediately, $12 million. Now, he got less in Dallas than was offered in Carolina and what he demanded in Colorado, but Rantanen has gone there. He's a really good hockey player. The other thing in Carolina, step up here and answer this question to your season ticket holders. You traded a 6'4" right winger who scores 40 goals for a 5'8" undersized forward and 2 number 1 draft picks who knows when they're going to be delivered and will they ever get to the NHL, because the NHL draft's a crapshoot. That's what you got for a 40-goal scorer. So Carolina's taken a lot of heat. Just like Boston. Boston walked in with a broom, and Cam Sweeney and their general manager just decided we're going to sweep the cupboard clean. They got rid of Brad Marchand, their captain, and they got rid of Charlie Coyle. Marchand went to the Florida Panthers, the enemy on the East Coast. Marchand was asking for a ton of money. It's a 27-goal scorer, captain. He's your emotional flag carrier. You traded him out of Boston. So he goes to the Florida Panthers. I don't care that you got number one pick. Number one pick's not deliverable. He might not be on the ice in Boston for 3 or 4 years if he makes it. So that's a big issue there. And, of course, then they got rid of Charlie Coyle. And, of course, they lost one of their top stars in the Four Nations tournament. That's the big story. Colorado has built a whole new team at the trade deadline. They got 5 acquisitions, the Colorado Avalanche did. Buffalo, which has got a lot of goal scorers, went out and got some grit. Got a big 6'5" defenseman from the Flyers, and they got a grinder to play at center ice. And Edmonton did not get a goalie, but Edmonton got a big physical center, and Edmonton got a big defenseman. And Winnipeg, which is one of the best teams in the league, got 2 really gritty players, led by Brandon Tanoff, who's feisty as can be. He'd look at you and punch you in the mouth in addition to go around you and score a goal. So, I mean, those are the teams that made a lot of things happen. Like I say, 54 trades, all-time record in the NHL on draft deadline day. So that's hockey. Let's talk San Diego FC MLS. Nobody puts an expansion team on the field and goes to first place, but SDFC has. They won in Salt Lake City, 3-1 in 38-degree weather. Can you imagine playing soccer in 38-degree weather? They beat Real Salt Lake. They scored in the 91st minute. They scored in the 96th minute. And even though they don't have Chucky Lozano, Anders Dreyer scores another game-winning goal for SDFC. They are 2-0-1 so far in MLS soccer. Just spectacular. They come home this coming weekend for their 3rd game. The other story is off the racetrack. That's Formula One we're talking about. He was one of the first leaders of F1 as it grew from just a European series to a global series, to coming to the United States. Technology, lots of money, unbelievable expensive sport to be in. His name is Bernie Ecclestone. He was a former driver. He became the leader of F1. He has since retired. Bernie Ecclestone, over the weekend, sold his entire group of cars in a collection that he had because he was a former driver, 69 cars. He sold it to the owners of Team Red Bull for $663 million. Included are Formula One cars that go back to 1950 when Bernie Ecclestone first broke in. It includes a collection of cars that were driven by Niki Lauda, Michael Schumacher, Nelson Piquet, Ayrton Senna. So he collected all these cars as he was the leader of F1. He's got them in a museum in a warehouse in England. And the group that bought all these cars is going to convert it into a true racing museum in England for all race car fans from around the country to go to. I mean, it's phenomenal. But Bernie Ecclestone, who's 94 years of age, has decided to part ways with all of his automotive collection, and he sold it to the owners of Team Red Bull. Just, it's a fascinating story. It's like I'm selling all the baseball memorabilia, build a museum in Cooperstown for me. That's what he's done in auto racing. It's kind of cool. All right, John, table is yours.
Well, yeah, you can't take it with you, exactly. So you got to donate it. And, I'm not one of those guys, but there are guys that just love old cars, whether they're F1 or they're, just classic automobiles from different eras in American history. So this is cool. And I had mentioned I had been to that Silverstone. Was it Silverstone?
Yes,
yeah.
In England.
The F1 track there right outside of London. And they have a nice museum there. But this sounds like it's like a Jay Leno style museum, with like you need a big warehouse for it, like a hangar.
Yeah. So Bernie Ecclestone has made that available. I'm surprised you did not get your ass traded at the NHL deadline. I thought first somebody else would be sitting there this week with me.
Well, I'm gonna use Callan's question. I was looking ahead at Fans Forum, and he just wants to know, who do you think won the NHL trade deadline?
I would have to say, obviously, the Florida Panthers getting Brad Marchand, because that's a great veteran player at age 37. They're going to sign to an extension, who's also a chemistry guy, and I think that's huge. I don't know what to make out of Rantanen going to Dallas, because he is a sniper, is a goal scorer, but they got Jason Robertson. They've got some really good players, and Dallas is a really good team, and now you add a 40-goal scorer to that team. Holy cow. And they signed him to a contract extension. He got there, got off the plane, and they signed him to $12 million a year after Carolina failed to get the deal done, and Colorado gave up on trying to get the deal done. Colorado's changed their chemistry. They could be really good, but the problem is when you got 5 new players coming in the front door and you got 30 games left in the season and your system's radically different, can you fast forward the Colorado Avalanche guys and get them into a system in which they play well? And Colorado's had some goaltending problems on top of it. Kings did not do anything of note. Rob Blake on a Zoom call told us, I'm not trading my young guys. I'm not trading Quentin Byfield. I'm not trading Brant Clark unless I can get the right guys. I was not going to move these guys just to move these guys to appease you guys at the trade deadline. So he stayed the course with what he's got. Ducks did not trade goaltender John Gibson. When I last talked to you on Thursday, I thought he might be headed to Edmonton at the deadline, but he's got such a big contract and he's played really well that teams, I don't think Edmonton could take him on because of the contract. I don't think Anaheim wanted to pay some of the salary going forward each of the next couple of years. So John Gibson did not get traded. I like Winnipeg's acquisitions. I think getting some grit to go with what they've already got. That's a good hockey team. And now you add Tanev, who is just, I hate to use the word bleep disturber, but that's who he is on the ice. He's like Kachuk. Kachuk causes all this mayhem. That's what Tanev is. I think Winnipeg's 2 acquisitions were pretty good, and they did it without giving up a number 1 pick or giving up a ton of stuff. So those are the winners at the trade deadline.
Can we talk a little about San Diego FC?
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, that was great. Now, first of all, I remember Aztec Mike telling me that you had to buy the what was it called, All Access on Apple TV to get it. And so I ended up buying that because I guess the first 2 games maybe were complimentary for Apple subscribers, is my guess. What a great game that was. I mean, and to see the San Diego FC with all the attacking going on, I'm learning more about soccer, which I like. I'm getting to know who these players are. The thing about soccer, which is great, is it's like an alternative vocabulary, you know, it's like we'll have quality out on the pitch, and different kinds of words you don't normally hear in other sports. But, you're talking about like 38 degrees, but the English Premier League plays in those kind of temperatures. Sure. And you'll see the coaches with the long down jackets and people in the stands drinking whiskey and with all their extra clothes on. Yeah, I mean, Salt Lake, by the way, I like that name, Real Salt Lake. I think it's pretty classy. And they're one of the better teams in the league, is my understanding. Yep. So what San Diego FC is accomplishing is tremendous. 7 out of a possible 9 points to start. Got to be thrilled. Yeah,
Anders Dreyfus has turned out to be Anders Dryers has turned out to be a sniper that nobody really expected. He was hidden in Denmark. He was not playing in the first division. So nice acquisition. So far, so good. So that's all things there. Feel free. You want to jump into the Fans Forum chat box with an opinion. Last one, we're going somewhere different here with this final topic on the table. John said, we got to talk about this stuff. Okay.
By the way, I like it when we talk about sports media, whether it's national or local.
All right, let's talk about, and we're going to start out of town and then we're going to reel it back into town. Stories breaking everywhere. Big incident last week at the end of the week, Lakers home game. LeBron James looks behind the bench, and behind the bench, Stephen A. Smith from ESPN is sitting there.
This is great.
And LeBron walks around the bench, stands right in front of him, and lectures him. Don't talk about my son, Bronny James, the way you're talking about him. Leave my son alone. And that's like taking a match and throwing it towards a gasoline can, because Stephen Smith is going to do this. So Stephen A. had made some comments that LeBron James had put his son in a terrible position by kind of mandating that the Lakers draft him, having him on the roster, and dropping hints, if you don't draft my son, I'll leave and opt out as a free agent, etc. And he's kind of blaming LeBron for the crisis that he created for Bronny.
Yes.
So Stephen says, I'm going to continue to talk about what I feel, what I think. LeBron can say what he wants. We don't have to be friends, etc., etc. I wish he had done it in private, rather the whole world to see. Okay, that's the risk you take if you're going to run your mouth. You have to answer to the people that you're running your mouth about. Then Bronny James goes on social media and Bronny tweets, some of us can ball. And by the way, there are some who can't ball to just talk about ball. As is Stephen A. Smith, just has no idea what the hell he's talking about. Now, Bronny is averaging 1.9 points per game, shooting 25% from the floor in the NBA. He's playing better in the NBA G League. When he plays, it's not on a consistent basis. He's averaging 13 points per game. So you got LeBron versus Stephen A. And by the way, Your people will have to call his people to make an appointment to talk to Stephen A. Smith because he's not earning minimum wage. He just signed a contract, 5 years, $100 million to stay at ESPN.
Wow, good for him.
They're paying $20 million a year to watch him do this all the time, talking about anything and everything in the world of sports.
Man, you're like born like 30 years too lately.
No,
that could have been you.
No, Stephen A. is great. I've known him. I've interviewed him when he was a beat writer in Philadelphia covering the NBA. He knows hoops. He talks hoops. He really knows his stuff. But he kind of lost me. I sat at an airport a couple of years ago, and he was on. He's always on.
Yeah.
And he's running this dialogue about the Patriots and the playoffs and Belichick, and we're going to do this, or they're going to do that. And he starts quoting song and verse about their wide receiver group. And he goes on and on and on. And he's talking about two guys that have been on injured reserve all year. And I'm saying, you're bluffing your way through this. This is all bull crap. I know these guys aren't playing. And you're telling everybody watching ESPN, Stephen A. is that these are the guys to watch in this next playoff. Holy cow. So I say, if he's BSing the population with that, what else is he BSing that he doesn't know about? There's probably a lot.
Well, he's getting into politics now.
Well, so you want to vote for him?
He said that there are people that want him to be the Democratic nominee for president.
You'd probably vote for him.
No way.
I don't know. The last person you voted for, that hasn't worked out very well. So that being said, Stephen A. has earned mega money right for him. It's amazing. Everybody's got an opinion. Charles Barkley, TBS, inside the NBA. Of course, he signed a contract extension to stay. They're going to be sublet. The inside the NBA group will now become part of the ESPN package when they get the NBA rights next season. Charles Barkley called everybody at ESPN, his new teammates, a bunch of idiots. Barkley just going on and on and on. He says, you people nationwide who are telling everybody across the nation the Lakers, by virtue of the Luka trade, just saved the NBA. He said, have you watched a Cleveland Cavalier game or an Oklahoma City Thunder game? You guys are a bunch of idiots. And Barkley just went off on everybody at ESPN.
Just terrible.
Oh, yeah, just firing shots. Fox TV saying goodbye to a really good man, Jimmy Johnson. I had the chance to interview him twice. Classy, smart, 27 years as a lead studio analyst with Howie Long and everybody else they plugged in there on their NFL panel. He's retired at age 82. He's moving back to Key West, Florida. Jimmy Johnson, hey, he was a great coach. Jerry Jones should thank him every year for what he did there, and obviously what Jimmy did it with the Miami Hurricane. Jimmy Johnson has retired. And that takes us to local media. San Diego Union Tribune's got a new sports editor, Ryan Finley, replaced Jay Posner. Finley's done a good job. The Sunday section of the UT is kind of cool. The way it's laid out, they cover a ton of stuff. They're down in personnel. Everybody from a newspaper standpoint is down in personnel. I understand what that industry has gone. They do a phenomenal job with the Padres. I think Kevin Acee and Jeff Sanders do a great job. Tom Krasovic has been flipped into being a columnist. Bryce Miller, who's fought some real health problems, he's been a columnist for an extended period of time. Nick Canepa writes once a week. But they're missing the mark because there's a bunch of things that they don't cover, and I don't understand why they don't cover it. I understand you don't do it on a beat basis, but there's no reason a major market newspaper should totally ignore a team that's gone 12-2-2. Totally. No game stories, no feature packages about the San Diego Gulls. How the hell are you ignoring hockey? Secondly, the mystique and the uniqueness of the San Diego Sockers. Absolutely zero coverage of this team that's won, 17, 19 indoor soccer championships. No feature packages at all. Why? I don't understand that. You know, I understand you're excited about SDFC, and rightfully so, but there's other teams out there that I think deserve coverage. And you can cover Point Loma, Nazarene, and all the others, but I think you need to cover really good franchises, even though they might be minor league or they might be, quote, semi-pro, and they haven't done it. So I'm really disappointed that aspect of the Union Tribune, because these people, notably the San Diego Gulls, deserve coverage. When you're 12-2-2 and you got all these young guys scoring goals, and some veterans they brought in, that hockey team deserves to be covered in some form or fashion, if not on a beat basis, but at least on a feature story basis or a notes column basis. If I were king, that's what I would do. So I'm telling the Union Tribune what to do. One final comment. Sports Talk Radio is not what Sports Talk Radio used to be. The Fan, 97.3, the Padre flagship station. Painful. Odyssey, the group that owns them, used to be known as Intercom, laid off over 100 people last week. They chopped their midday talk show. Craig Elston, soccer boy, Annie Heilbrunn, Annie the cheerleader, as I call them, were let go. Financial cutbacks. This is what corporate radio has become. You're talking to a victim of corporate radio. All my friends have been a victim of corporate radio. Do you know how many really good people in broadcasting are on the street right now because of corporate radio? Clear Channel and what iHeart did to our stations, what Cumulus has done, and now what Intercom, which has become Odyssey, has done. They put so many good people out of work. It's terrible. Craig Elston got cut. Annie got cut. I didn't get along with them. The same management people that terminated the coach, John Quintera. Sorry, I just can't agree with putting that many good people and impacting their families out because there's some bottom line that you got to answer to for some corporate guy up top who does not know what he's doing. So I felt really badly. Craig and I didn't get along. Soccer boy, that's okay. I liked Annie. She's been victimized by all these layoffs. You know, before that it was Bally Sports and Fox Sports, and she was at the UT, and she kind of got victimized of where they are. But at the end of the day, I just totally disagree with what corporate management has done. Do you have any good people or free agents right now in San Diego from the sports talk world that we were part of? You know, the kind of station you could put on the air with the guys who've been let go. Here's a brown envelope. Sign it. Get your stuff out of the office by 5 o'clock tonight. That's terrible. Just absolutely terrible. That's my opinion. All things on the media. Go ahead. You want to talk about LeBron and Bronny? And no, you're a legacy guy. You're not going to cover that. Talk about Stephen A. and Charles Barkley, Jimmy Johnson, your newspaper, and all of us who were victims in sports talk radio.
Yeah, so there's a lot in there. Now, first of all, I love this overall topic of covering sports media because I remember like 30 years ago, there was a column in the Union Tribune
every Friday
that would cover what it would talk about Hacksaw and Jim Rome and talk about Leitner and what he was doing on television news and everything. It was cool. I like this side of the business. For me, it's interesting. But let's talk, I'll go in backwards order so we get the local guys first. 97.3. I mean, you know, Craig Elston has been around forever. I've always kind of liked him. Annie is very likable, but it just seems to me that, you know, everything's going podcast. You know, it's the radio young people really don't listen to the radio much anymore. So I imagine we could get all these street free agents and put together the best radio team of all time. But I wonder if anyone would listen.
Well, they would listen as witnessed by who's participating in our podcast Monday and Thursdays. Phenomenal. But is there money to be made? That's the big issue. But at the end of the day, you need local radio and need good talent on local radio to be successful on local radio. The Padres flagship station is successful because they pay a lot of money to broadcast Padre baseball. But once they're out of the baseball ratings, their ratings are on the floor. The other sports station has negligible ratings, and that's on a 50,000 watt signal. If I was a program director of 760 and I had a station on a big signal that had a 0.5 rating, like 23rd in the market, I think I'd shoot myself. That comes back to management's decisions of putting the right people on the air in the right situation, which means you got to pay them. And that's not happening, at least in local sports talk radio. You compare sports talk radio at this hour to where it was when we invented 690, and then what we did when we reinvented and took part in 1090. It is so different now. And if you don't have good product, you're not going to have good ratings. You don't have good ratings. You don't make revenue. It's just a vicious circle. Like I said, there's a lot of street free agents out there that if I were king, I would start a station. I would start a station with Hacksaw and the coach, John Quintera. And I'd start a station with Scott Kaplan and Billy Ray Smith and Dave and Jeff. I mean, there's a whole pile of good people you could build a station from, but you obviously need to invest and you need to be on a big signal. And if you got the play-by-play rights, that helps it. So 97.3 is good in season. When they're out of season, no, not so ever. And in terms of Soccer Boy and Annie Cheerleader, they took a midday show that had an 11 share with John Quintero, and they terminated John. When those people were let go, they had a 3 share.
Oh my God.
From a content standpoint. So that's now that's out of season. I understand it's out of season, but you do good sports talk, you should be able to knock down good numbers across the board. And they did not. So I feel bad that they got let go. I felt bad that Quintero got booted out. And the people 97.3 don't like me. I don't give a damn.
Everyone's got an opinion on you, you know, whether
That's
it's positive or negative. But I'll tell you what, there are a lot of these street free agents are doing their own podcasts. And there's a lot of other guys like me that are just podcasters that have talked about sports. I'd imagine there might be a way to kind of bring all these resources together, and maybe an advertiser can make a single buy that would spread across this whole ecosystem of local sports journalists. There's maybe a business opportunity there.
So you want to be the guy who syndicates a network. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah, well, why not? You know, I mean, I'll get the chance to work with you, maybe others as well. But I just want to go down the list. But by the way, with Sports Talk Radio, I will listen to the Padre games and the Aztec games when I'm driving religiously. But when I'm like driving around otherwise, I'm usually listening to podcasts or sometimes just regular news.
And throw into that Sirius XM's specific channels.
Oh, that too.
The baseball home plate channel, the NFL channel. I listen to all that plus the hockey channel. So
yeah, and that's what I do is I have Sirius in my car, and I've got a collection of, you know, national news and sports news that are on that rotation. But you know, I mean, the only time I listened to 760 was on Saturday. I remember I had to go and grab a bite to eat, and it was drifting into the beginning of the Aztec basketball game. And so I listened to like the first 5 minutes of the game driving in my car.
You come home and watch it on TV. Everybody's watching it.
Well, yeah, but it was just the timing of everything that worked out for dinner, and I went out and got a bite. So, but it's rare, you know, to listen on regular radio. The whole world has changed.
Exactly.
Now, as far as the UT is concerned, it's interesting that you say, well, they got a new layout, and I can picture that.
Sunday sports section is really kind of cool, I think. But the rest of the week, it's lacking. And you're ignoring these teams that I think you should be doing something for.
Well, it's like, ignoring your local AAA baseball team. I mean, that's a legitimate sports franchise that should be covered. But I subscribe to the UT, but the digital only. So I don't get the impact of the layout and the paper and all of that. But there's certain guys. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mark Ziegler. I think he does a great job.
Exactly.
And I was interested to see what he was going to do, because he covered the Aztec game, and I would assume he covered San Diego FC, but I noticed that Kirk Kenny was on the FC beat. Right. But I'm wondering if Ziegler is going to cover San Diego FC in the MLS.
Well, he's got an international sports background. He covers the Olympics. I mean, he's gifted. He's really gifted.
Yeah,
but they don't have a lot of manpower to spread out to cover everything.
But Aztec Nation just thinks that Mark Ziegler is like a Debbie Downer, because he's always looking at the glass half empty. But I still like him. He does a really good job. And then as far as the rest of these, Barkley is fantastic. He speaks his mind. That's why we love him. Stephen A, I'm a huge fan of. And I saw that interchange with LeBron, like out on the court. And I'm just thinking, LeBron, you brought all this on yourself, by insisting that your son play in the NBA with you and all of this. I mean, Stephen A is just reporting on it, and granted, he's got his own style of reporting, but LeBron
is commenting on it.
Yeah, but it's okay, and LeBron is sometimes very thin-skinned about a lot of things in the NBA.
If you want to solve the problem, you solve it privately. Now, Stephen A would say, oh, LeBron confronted me in the hallway outside the locker room and said blah, blah, and he would then make it a public issue.
Well, so would you.
That's okay. So that's where we are. But I don't know if LeBron bought it on. I mean, God, we're wasting so much time talking about the 12th guy on the Lakers roster who never is going to play. So why is this a big issue, except that Stephen A made it an issue, so LeBron made it a bigger issue by doing it in public, and now Stephen A's talked about it again.
And now Bronny is feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Yeah, those of us who ball know, and those of us who don't ball talk about ball.
Well, Stephen A, didn't he play like at North Carolina A&M or something like that? I think he got a cup of coffee at Division I basketball.
God, they're paying him $20 million a year to say what he says. What's that number for ESPN? Maybe I should call.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I doubt it. Anyhow, all things sports. Fans Forum chat box is open. Feel free to jump on board. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers. There are 9 locations to serve you. You got projects, they got materials, you want ideas, they'd be glad to help you. Only thing I can recommend, just go to the website, DixieLine.com. See all the things that Dixie Line Lumber has to offer to you. John, you think there's a few thousand people here with opinions today? Wow, go ahead, fire away. Where do you want to go?
Okay. And first of all, I just want to apologize. We're having trouble with our Twitter live stream. So some of the listeners have had to jump on YouTube or Facebook to watch us. Well, we'll start here. I say you give us a couple of bucks, you go to the front of the line. Matthew says, and by the way, thank you, Matthew, for the donation. The Dodgers' Tommy John arm problem, San Diego fans like to feel high and mighty about it is BS. Look at Cole, who is as healthy as anyone, any other elite arm. Look at the studies. It's a sports issue with elite velo.
Oh, no, I totally agree with you. You know, and the Dodgers, I think they had 9 surgeries last year with pitchers at the major league level, plus what happened at Oklahoma City. And now they've had 2 in the offseason, plus what has just happened to Michael Grove. So, you know, they said they're going to evaluate. They're going to look and see what they were doing or not doing correctly. They've not wanted to talk about the data that they put together, but it's really significant. But it is a velocity issue. It's a training issue. It's do we ban certain pitches from our pitchers in the organization? You know, the cutter situation with the bite that you're getting, putting the stress on the elbow, that's something the organizations need to evaluate and say, maybe this is not safe enough for our pitchers. Walker Buehler had the most amazing comment of all because he was questioned. The LA Times did a big investigative piece on this months and months ago. And Walker Buehler said, I know what I have to do to win. I know what I have to do to get a big contract. And I know the risk if what I do causes an injury, and I can rehab that. So he's looked at it very, very differently, but the pitchers are, we want to win. I want a big contract, and I'm going to do what I have to do, even if I break down doing it. So it's a tough, tough call. And it's just not the Dodgers. If Garrett Cole of the Yankees has to have surgery, and he had elbow problems last spring at this time, if he has to have surgery, this will be, get this, John, because I just started this tabulation again. This will be the 7th elbow surgery since spring training opened 3 weeks ago. We've had 7 pitchers already go down. He'd obviously be the biggest name of all.
Yeah, it's something. I mean, like I say, it's a sport, you know, here. And by the way, Matthew had a follow-up, and I just want to throw this in. He goes, I'm looking at you, John, with the TJ comments, you know, the Tommy John comments. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think we've talked a lot about how the Dodgers had a lot of arm injuries last year compared to other teams.
Right.
And so then we were wondering if it had something to do with Dodger culture. Did it have something to do with Mark Pryor? By the way, is Mark Pryor still the pitching coach?
Sure.
He is? Okay. And was it something to do with him? You know, there were a lot of theories here. But, you know, as a San Diego sports fan, I wasn't, you know, going ha to the Dodger nation.
Because it could happen in your bullpen too.
Yeah. Well, it happened to Musgrove, you know, and it's happened to a lot of guys. So the thing about the Dodgers is they got so many resources. They got, like, you know, 10 Cy Youngs in the closet they could pull out at any time, you know, so it's tragic. You don't want to hear this sort of thing. And, you know, it's bad on Garrett Cole too, but it's just, and unfortunately, it's just part of the industry. It's rare to see a pitcher go a whole career without some form of a major injury.
Well, especially with what pitching has become and the wide variety of pitchers and the 11-month-a-year training thing that pitchers go through in their regimen. Everybody is bigger and stronger, throwing much more harder. The only thing that doesn't change, your shoulders can get bigger, your legs can get bigger. You can throw harder. The only thing that doesn't change is the ligaments in the elbow, which have to deal with the force of the pitch. And that's why these guys are blowing their arms out. And then you got the pitcher's mentality, as Walker Buehler said. I know what I have to do, and I'm going to do it so we can win, and I can get a contract. If I get hurt, I'll try to get it fixed.
It's kind of like those guys back in old school NFL. It's like they would play through concussions. They would take steroids, even if it took 10 years off their life, because it's such a just the dream of a lifetime to be playing at the highest level of your favorite sport.
And earning the kind of money they did.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the input on Fans Forum. Next one.
Okay, let's go to our other good friend, David. He says, the Lakers good, but no comparison to OKC or Cleveland. Those teams have somehow those teams have someone new coming up each game. Lakers have 3 players. Everyone else just out there to make the stars look good.
Well, they got an issue, and you know, the whole world, in essence, Charles Barkley was correct. You people are not paying attention. You know, he kind of blew up at everybody saying, you guys on ESPN are a bunch of idiots, saying the Lakers just saved the NBA season. And pay attention to Cleveland. Cleveland's sitting there, what, 45 or 46 wins? Pay attention to Oak City. Just absolutely phenomenal. So, I mean, it's the question is, do the Lakers have enough? I don't know that they have enough. There's no doubt Luka and LeBron playing together are dynamic, but they also go through really bad spurts. I mean, they sat there, they went 16 possessions in a row in Boston without a basket. And they were defensed out of the game, and they fell behind by 22. And now they tried to rally back, hitting a bunch of threes late in the game. But we'll see what happens on this road trip, because they're going from Boston, and after tonight's game, they'll go to Milwaukee, they go to Denver. If they get whacked 2 more times, all of a sudden, they got a problem. Even though they still got 2 of the greatest modern-day ball players. I just don't think that they have enough.
I think Stephen A. Smith's head would explode if the NBA Finals was Cleveland against OKC.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine?
The network people, too.
Now, is Chet Holmgren is playing again for the Thunder, right? I mean,
no, he has yet to come back. He, of course, is coming back from hip surgery.
Oh, he hasn't. I thought I saw a highlight with him. Maybe it was an old highlight.
Yeah, I don't think he's back. And obviously, Wembanyama's not playing because of the blood clot.
Yeah, that's a shame as well. But I mean, you know, my son went to school at Oklahoma, and so I've been to OKC, and it's an interesting community, but it's kind of such an isolated area. The fact that they have an NBA team, a huge thrill for the people that live in that community, because they don't have baseball, or not Major League Baseball. Or
people in Seattle don't think so. They took the Supersonics out of there.
Yeah, they did. That sucks.
Yeah. But the NBA chose a market that there was nothing in there and dropped it in there, and it's became a success. Success, rebuilt, failed, success again. Okay, we move on. David, thanks for joining us.
Okay, we'll go here to Cal, and he goes, the WCC will be adding Seattle University next season. Grand Canyon was in, then bolted to the Mountain West. Rumblings suggest maybe Cal Baptist joins the WCC from the WAC. We'll see.
Well, that's the next level down. Everybody needs to have a place to play, so I understand why Seattle University, who was it that went there that was with first grade starts? That's a home of Elgin Baylor, is it not? Seattle University, Chieftains, way back in the day.
Well, more recently, I think it was Darian Trammell from the Aztecs that was there. Yeah. I don't know about Elgin Baylor.
No, Elgin Baylor, I think, was there, but that goes back 50 plus years. Everybody needs somewhere to go. The WCC loses St. Mary's. That means the one with the most established success run is probably University of San Diego. This season, 6-27 record notwithstanding. That'd be good for USD, but they lose St. Mary's after having seen Gonzaga go. Holy cow. They are off the radar forever and ever. They're just another mid-level conference.
Now, I saw some guy on Twitter had this idea, and it caught me by surprise. And he said, what if the Pac-12 decided to basically blow up the group of 5 and then go out and cherry pick and raid all these teams and bring a whole bunch of teams to the Pac-12, like way more than 12. Like
you got
20.
Contracts, though. You got Dita Grants. These guys are not going to be able to break out of their contracts.
Well, whenever the contracts are up. But I wonder if you could amass all of the group of 5 into one conference, and you can do it geographically, Northwest, Southwest, yada, yada. Could that develop and create 2 or 3 teams at the football level that could compete in the playoff?
Some of these contracts, these media deals, go through 2033. Some of them go to 2036. So we're not talking about a week from Monday.
But even in the small conferences?
No, I'm talking about the major conferences.
Well, yeah, of course. But I mean, imagine if you got the American Association and the Big East and, the SWAC. I don't know, does the SWAC still exist?
But they're not players.
Yeah, but if you were able to build those group of 5s and bring them together, WCC, the Mountain West, is there a way that synergy of all of them together could, I don't know, disrupt the model?
No, because the networks are going to take what the networks take, which is the big conferences. I'm sorry, they're just not going to take Jackson State, and just because you think that Jackson State ought to be playing Idaho State, the top school in the Big Sky Conference. You would take all these, and you might have a really good second-tier conference, but networks are not spending wads of money for Jackson, Mississippi, or Pocatello, Idaho. They're going to the big boys.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
John,
I'm just trying to think if there's a creative way here.
I told you not to drink too much coffee.
Because they're taking, like you say, the third tier is moving to the second tier, and it's confusing.
It doesn't impact anybody.
Hmm.
I mean, except for the guy going, hey, we're going to the WCC. Okay, who's left in the WCC? Because the Zags are gone and St. Mary's might be going too. Who's left?
Exactly.
Okay,
moving on.
Next.
Okay, let's go here to Hector. He says, Lee, Dave Roberts now has 2 World Series rings and is the highest paid MLB manager. Not bad for someone Preller didn't deem worthy of an interview.
Yeah, there's a lot of people kind of actually told me that this morning. Flashed back and said, couldn't get an interview in San Diego when they decided to hit the eject button on Bud Black. What about the Padre management not interviewing this guy? Well, obviously, he's gone to work for the richest team in Major League Baseball right now that has spent enormous amounts of money, and money is no object as it relates to Dodger baseball, but he's doing a good job. So, hats off to all things Dave Roberts. Had he been here, maybe he would have been a success, but if he'd been here, if ownership didn't put a good product on the field, give him a good roster, he might have just kind of drifted aimlessly and be like some other Padre managers. And Bruce Bochy did win World Series, not here, other places. Dave Roberts has won World Series, other places, but not here. So that's a byproduct of the organization, no?
There's a number of other Padres that are managing. I mean, Will Venables, now the White Sox manager, and Cote. And there were a couple of other guys I remember was being discussed. But I'm going back in time. I remember Dave Roberts was the first base coach under Bochy, I think. Mm-hmm. And then he was the bench coach, but I'm not sure. Did they pass him over for the job that Andy Green got, or was it the next one in the line?
No, he got passed over when Bud Black was removed. A.J. Preller was here. A.J. Preller did not interview Dave Roberts.
So Dave Roberts was probably the bench coach for Bud Black.
Right.
Maybe they didn't interview him because they kind of already knew him, but it just, or they just wanted a clean house and start fresh. But they definitely let go a quality guy.
Yeah, exactly. He managed one game as an interim manager. And then he was gone.
Well, that's your interview, I guess.
We move on.
Okay, we move on. All right, let's go down here. Let's go to Gordon. He goes, hi, Lee and John. After losing the first 2 games to Texas A&M, New Mexico State beat them 4-0. Texas A&M is ranked number 14 in the nation. Thanks, guys.
He must be talking college baseball.
Yeah.
With apologies, until we get to the College World Series, there are just not enough hours to cover everything. But college baseball, once we get to Omaha, we'll be talking about it. But obviously, the Aggies are a pretty good program, and there's some other really good programs around the country.
College baseball is cool, I mean,
Omaha's neat. Rosenblatt Stadium, the old Rosenblatt Stadium was neat. I was in Phoenix at the time. Arizona State was a national power, and geez, getting to go to the College World Series is really kind of cool. And it's become a big event now because obviously ESPN has helped promote it and televise it and made it a big event, home run derby and all that.
Yeah, and then even our local stadiums like Tony Gwynn Stadium at San Diego State, and also what is it, like Ron Fowler, I think has his name on the one at USD.
Yes.
And even the Triton Stadium, kind of by the trolley out there, just east of the I-5 freeway. Those are nice places to see baseball, and more fans should show up.
Yeah, it's tough though. I mean, USD is 2-14 this year. They're having a really hard time. Yeah, they've really lost some players and haven't been able.
That's a premier program.
It was, yes. And San Diego State's been down for a couple of years, and Sean Cole's having a really tough time. I think they're 4-13. And they've had problem holding players. That's the thing. Guys come in, might have some success, and then they go somewhere because of the NIL. Yeah. And it's just right now.
World's changed.
College baseball right now is a little bit of a down cycle.
Yeah. Okay. Let's keep moving here, and we'll go here to Carlos. And he says the Lakers cut the Boston lead to 4 points with 6 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. LeBron got hurt. They were missing 2 starters, Hayes and Hachimura. I like the way they battled shorthanded and the refs.
Yeah, they hit a bunch of threes, and then Boston kind of took their foot off the pedal, but then Boston kind of put their foot back on the pedal on their throat, and the game was over. There's no argument that there are chunks of time where Luka and LeBron look totally unstoppable, but Luka turns the ball over unbelievable amounts, and LeBron's made some bad passes. I just don't think that they have a deep roster, and once we get to the playoffs, holy cow, is this ever going to be hard? Because you're not playing the Utah Jazz once you get to postseason play. So your much better gauge of the Lakers would be if LeBron and Luka had been able to stay on the floor and see how they did in Milwaukee, see how they do in Denver, and see how they do. They still got 2 with Oak City. They got 2 more with Houston. That's really going to be the judge as to whether it's a complete basketball team or not.
Remind me again, LeBron's injury and how
String
long?
groin.
Oh, the groin. That's right.
It's the second time he's hurt it since December.
Okay, and how long will he be out?
Well, he said a week. The last time he was out for an extended period, but he said it was only a week. Only time will tell.
But he's an old man, you know. It takes longer to recover.
I would tend to think it is. If it's just a tweak, it's different. But when he got hurt, I was watching it, and the network guys were talking about Luka's back is bothering him. Luka had his hands back there. But I saw LeBron, he could hardly move. He was just kind of frozen in time down on the baseline, trying to move his leg. I said, holy cow, looks like he hurt. I thought it might have been his groin or his quad, but he had to be helped off the floor. And then he obviously disappeared.
Unbelievable. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised this sort of thing doesn't happen more often.
Well, he plays so hard.
Exactly.
Except for the haters who just don't respect him.
Yeah. And then injuries taken out. Giancarlo Stanton. It's happened in baseball too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Let's keep going. Okay. This is a good one here from the O-Siders. Hacksaw, you know how cutthroat the radio industry is. I'm sure you're aware of the Odyssey layoffs and changes to 97.3. Question: would you both accept a radio gig if offered one today? LOL.
John, you want to work with me on radio? Get your ass up at 4:30 in the morning to be on the air at 6 a.m. because that's what it takes, pal.
You've done it. I mean, you've done every time slot.
Yeah, I did afternoon drive, and they asked me to go to morning drive to help them, and I did, and then we eventually all got wiped out. So when we were successful at what we were doing, if it's the right deal, I'd listen and talk to anybody. I tried to work a package between myself and the coach, John Quintero, because we're kind of cut from the same cloth and we have similar interest. And we thought, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we did a two-man show? And everybody was going towards two-man shows. Yeah. We tried to talk to some people, but nobody wanted to negotiate because they didn't have money in their budget, or they didn't think that me and John would be a good pair. I don't know. But so we tried. Nothing happened. That's okay. I'm doing what I like, and John's doing what he likes, and we're all dealing with a lot of stuff off the air that people aren't really aware of. So life is life, and it changes. You make changes, and you go to it. I'm doing this TV stuff that's really cool on KUSI every Saturday, and at 6:30 in the morning, and I'm doing this, and I write on my website. For a guy that's not supposed to be working, and John knows this, I'm sure working a hell of a lot. Holy cow. It's okay. So life changes. Most everybody I know that was part of the great things that we did on Sports Talk Radio is out of the business. And sadly, a lot of them are really bitter, and that's too bad. I'm not bitter. I'm just kind of disappointed at the way it ended. Would I like to do it? Sure. But end of the day, this is what I'm doing. This is kind of like what I was doing before. That's pretty good.
Yeah, this is good. You know, and I enjoy this, hanging out with you, talking sports. I mean, especially after I listened to you on the radio forever. And by the way, when you were on the morning show, I mean, love you, Hacksaw, but that didn't feel like a good fit because you're like a drive time radio guy. Like I think of in the afternoons where morning shows are usually a little bit kooky, you know, and you're a lot of things, but you're not kooky.
Sometimes free spirited, a lot of times opinionated. But again, we were dealing with consultants, and I said, we had a problem in morning drive. Would you go to morning drive? I said, okay, I'll help you out. And then after I got on morning drive, and I was trying to find my bearings, and it was a different feel, although I liked it. Then they came back to me and said, we really want to try to make this into a two-man show. And then we went through a whole bunch of people that we looked at, interviewed, and talked to about doing a two-man show. And they thought they had a two-man show with a guy they brought in from Phoenix, J.D. Hayworth. It didn't work out because J.D.'s interests were in political talk, not really sports talk. And then they removed him, and they said, let's just have rotating co-hosts, and that was great. And we did a whole bunch of people. Kevin Acee and I co-hosted the show for a while, and he was good in his venue, which is Major League Baseball. And we had the TV sports anchors that come in. We had a lot of wide former players, and some were good, some were not good. We're just trying to feel it. And then 6 months later, they said, staff meeting upstairs, your contract has expired. Here's a brown envelope, sign the brown envelope, clean out your office. I didn't do anything to get bought out, but I got bought out. They took care of me. They did a really, really good job. But that doesn't ease the sting of I got taken out by Clear Channel iHeart, just like everybody else who worked at Clear Channel iHeart got taken out. And as we've just seen, Odyssey just unloaded more than 100 people this week, and reporters going to be 300 people let go in May. That's pretty bad for the industry to have that many good people, because it's not only people, it's your family that's impacted. And I just have a real problem with corporate management right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, but from a corporate perspective, they got to hit their numbers, right? I get that, but it just seems that Clear Channel, iHeart has always been more aggressive, you know, more kind of draconian, you know, in the way they do their cuts. But I'll tell you what, I think you and Coach together, we've had him on our show, and it's great chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys would be terrific together. And, you know, there's a lot of weirdness with sports radio because, you know, the question is, are people listening to podcasts or radio? How are they getting the content? But the people that do listen to radio, a lot of them are complaining that the quality of the content has really gone downhill.
I think so. And I think the quality of the hosts has really gone downhill. What should you be? What should you be talking about? Talking about the hot topics on the table. Don't tell me about where the hell you went to dinner. You know, don't go off on these tangents about who's having sex with who on TV. I'm just, that's not my demographic. That should not be the sports demographic. If you want to, you know, do crackpot radio, that's okay. You can put it on another FM station and whatever. We all have different styles.
We tend to go off on, at least I do, go off on tangents, but either you bring me back into the lane or the fans will get upset, you know, when we start talking politics. So
my favorite phrase is, hey, dumbass, what are you talking about?
Exactly.
Okay, a couple more here before we go to social media.
All right, let's go here to Gary. He goes, for this season, I think Ohtani would be best served as a short reliever in the bullpen instead of as a starter. It would be tricky to have him warm up during games since he has to bat.
Exactly. They've really tried to learn the methodology of what the Angels accomplished, because your prep as a DH every day is very different than your prep if you're a starting pitcher once every 5 days. There is still prep you have to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in terms of physical stuff, exertion, bullpen sessions, meetings, video, and all that. Well, your prep as a pitcher is different from your prep as a DH, but your prep on DH is really significant in terms of lifting and what you do in terms of running, and then all the video you study because you're going to be the designated hitter, and you got to scope out the starting pitcher, scope out who might be the first reliever out of the bullpen, what does he throw, what do you have to go to the bat in the 8th inning, and you're facing a closer. So, I mean, the stuff away from the field and in the dugout, in the clubhouse is really extensive. And the Angels did a pretty good job mastering that with Ohtani, and he's a unique person in terms of being fanatical in terms of preparation. Dodgers obviously are going through that right now, but they have the luxury of not Gary having to force him to do both things. But that's an unbelievable individual to be able to do all that prep mentally and all the physical prep to be your DH. And by the way, box this amount of time out to do all that prep to be a starting pitcher on Saturday or Sunday.
It is. I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, you know, thinking it through. I mean, it's no wonder that you had a wingman like Ippei Mizuhara. I mean, it's obviously that guy was a crook, but if you're going to be spending that much time in meetings, you don't have time to manage your life, you know? And so he needed that guy. But yeah, I just think it would be odd to see him in a reliever role because you're going to want him batting every single day. And when he played for the Angels and when he pitched, did he hit on those same days?
Yes.
Wow. So it's just like,
he was DH pitcher on that day, as odd as that sounds, but they kept him in that rhythm.
So then that's interesting too, because I think it would give Dave Roberts some flexibility with the lineup, because then he could use his pitcher would hit, right? So how would that change the DH? I don't know. Something different would have to occur.
They'd have another DH. I mean, DH can be in the lineup. Your pitcher just be like an everyday hitter.
So then one guy in the lineup wouldn't hit at all. Like you had a weak hitting second baseman.
No, one guy in the lineup would be your designated hitter. And Ohtani would be a hitter who's also happened to be a pitcher rather than their hitter be a third baseman.
Yeah. Okay. It's confusing. I hate to do score on that game.
Okay. We move on.
All right. This one here, this is a shot at me. This is Alan says, John says Tim Anderson is a great guy. Dude has been suspended multiple times for issues with Josh Donaldson and Jose Ramirez. He's also been suspended for bumping an umpire.
Oh, he's a hothead. There's a video out when Tim Anderson played with the White Sox. It was a play at second base. It might have been with Ramirez. Ramirez went in head first to steal second, and there was body contact. And somebody said something to somebody. The next thing you know, Anderson threw his glove down, put his fist up, and Ramirez threw one punch and knocked him down. That video is out there. If you go search Tim Anderson duking it out. But the guy's a fireball. He's a firebrand, and he was really good till he got hurt. So right now, we'll just see. The Angels, is he a badass? A little bit. I mean, he's never done drugs and all that. He's had confrontations, yeah. Ejections, yeah. But he's got a little fire in his belly. We'll just see if he can contribute.
You know, I misspoke. So, mea culpa. Because I remember when they were talking about, with all the Black Lives Matter stuff going on, and they were highlighting, not Latin players, but legit African-American players. And Tim Anderson was often one of those names because he was an all-star. And so I guess that's why I was thinking good guy, because he was in that category as sort of one of the faces of baseball for that demographic group.
Yes. No, and he is a firebrand. I mean, there's a little vinegar and spit with him.
Yeah.
You're going to slide hard into him, you might get kicked along. That's who he is. Question is, can he hit back to what he used to hit? Because he was a really good ball player, but he has his history be a little yappy sometimes too.
Yeah. Okay. All good. Let's keep moving here. And this is from the one Mr. Smith. This is Flegel on his YouTube handle. Because I'm hoping the Dodgers, Roberts, Friedman have seen the light and are going to address the injury epidemic. Will they be taking care of their pitchers? Thoughts?
Well, I think the burning question is, if the cutter is causing this high degree of surgeries, injuries, forearms to your pitchers at Oklahoma City and here, then maybe you need to walk away from the cutter. Now, getting pitchers to walk away from something that's really good in terms of getting outs and getting them wins and getting them contract extensions, that might be hard to convince the Walker Buehlers of the world that they need to cut back to preserve their health. There's only so many bullets in the gun. But they've had a preponderance. I mean, they had 9 surgeries last year at the big league level and then at AAA. They had 2 more in this offseason. Now Michael Grove goes down with shoulder surgery, torn labrum. So that's an unbelievable amount of arms that they have lost. This club more than anybody else. So they're not talking about their evaluation. But, John, you can't let this go on unaddressed, no?
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of how you would address it, because by putting any sort of limitations on the pitcher, you're limiting their career aspirations and you're kind of limiting the quality of the game.
Yep.
But it's no doubt. I mean, my son pitched in high school and it's all about velo, and so if they're not able to achieve that, I don't know how you could not. I mean, unless we had a whole bunch of new Greg Maddoxes that rolled into the league, maybe that could reinvent the way we see pitching. And maybe Kyle Hendricks is one of those guys.
Well, Kyle Hendricks is old school. Kyle Hendricks, he had a good run with the Cubs, but he's not going to break a pane of glass with his fastball.
No, he's not.
But I mean, he painted the plate and he was real good and he did very well. But then he had shoulder problems.
Yeah,
he got hurt in a game against the Padres and he came off, and it took him 1.5 years. He's had a good spring so far with the Angels. So we'll just see. But there's not a lot of Maddoxes walking down the hallway.
Have you watched Alec Jacob pitch for the Padres? And he has this weird release. It's like he's literally like throwing a Frisbee.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most unusual motion, but he's only throwing like 82 miles an hour.
Yeah. It's movement on the ball and what kind of pitch is he throwing. I'm a Matt Waldron knuckleball guy. I'd like to see him make it because there's no knuckleball pitchers in Major League Baseball right now.
By the way, when I was watching the game, one of the televised games for the Padres, and they were talking about how, before we had the sweeper was this new thing. And I remember I was wondering how they come up with that name. And, they've always had these classic names for different pitches. But now I guess there's a new name called the gyro splitter, I think it is.
Probably something that Darvish invented, because Darvish is the one that invented the gyro ball.
Yeah. So what's interesting, though, is that there's an effort by Major League management at the executive level to reframe the vocabulary that the announcers use. I think they are encouraged to use sweeper, and that's why we heard that word so often the last few years.
Yeah. Prior to that, it was slurve, which was an offshoot of the curveball and a slider. So everybody's got a different gimmick. I didn't understand what the hell a sweeper was till I watched it. And I said, boy, there's real bite. Look at the ball movement there. But the damage that guys are doing trying to throw what they're throwing with the velocity is just amazing. Okay, we've got a few social media here. I bet there's a few people got opinions about me and you.
I want to, before we do that, there's a couple of more comments here that I think I want to get to. And there's some repeat posters, but they're good questions. And David says he wants to talk San Diego FC. He goes, Anders Dreyer played at RSC Anderlecht, which is the Belgian Pro League, which is the top league in Belgium. There is one league below BPL and some semi-pro leagues, not the EPL, but still top.
Still top in that country, but it's not La Liga in Spain. It's not Serie A in Italy. It's not the English Premier League. It's just the next level down. Really good player. Why he was not in the EPL is absolutely amazing to me. The other one is, and John and I have talked about Manchester City. Erling Haaland came from Norway. How did this guy not not get grabbed by somebody else who was offering big money? How is he not in Liverpool? How did he not go to Real Madrid or obviously Saudi Arabia, which is paying gobs and gobs of money? So it's fascinating. But, you know, Dreyer's a really fine player. This guy's turned out to be a gem. And I thought the minute Chucky Lozano got hurt, I said, they're going to concentrate and they're going to mark this guy and he's not going to get a shot. Well, that's not the case. And here he is, and he runs like a deer. All of a sudden, he's running across the middle and the ball is on his toe and he rockets a shot from the box. All three of his goals have come on movement plays where they pinpointed passes and he blasted it home. He's a really good player. He's a veteran player. And he was a top player, as you'd say. He's actually a Dane playing in Belgium, but it's not the EPL. It's not Spain. It's obviously not Italy.
You know, this is all part of the learning process with soccer, because I'll go on sports.yahoo.com and then I'll look at the sports. That's where I usually go for my updates on schedules and games. And when you go to soccer, you can pick the league and then it shows all the different leagues. Mm-hmm. And it was confusing to me originally that there was an Italian league and a Spanish league and the English Premier League. And you knew the Premier League was the top of the tops, but you didn't know the stack ranking of them. And now I'm starting to learn that, you know, as far as which leagues are, how they're ranked. MLS, apparently the 9th ranked league in the world. So this is the cool part about having a franchise here for MLS, is that I feel like we're now part of the international soccer community. I mean, I love the San Diego Sockers and they achieved great things in San Diego, but that was different than what we're doing now with San Diego FC.
Yeah, concur. You know, the English Premier League is the elite. Now, below that, there's a pecking order of the next division, which I think is called the Championship League.
Correct.
Those are the franchises that don't get to the EPL or part of the top 3 in the Championship League get promoted every year. The bottom 3 of the EPL get demoted, deleted, and they go down a level. So there's different levels at different club levels. It's like Division 1, 1AA, Division 2, Division 3 in soccer.
Yeah, exactly. And I when I saw the stack ranking of the leagues, I think that Championship League, that's the second tier.
Right,
which is the AAA for EPL.
Exactly.
But it was like ranked either 8 or 10, because I remember MLS was 9. So that kind of gives you a sense of what that is. And then isn't it like Ryan Reynolds owns a team, right?
Yeah, Wrexham in Wales.
Is that in the Championship League?
No.
That's another level down.
They're another level down.
Okay, there's so much to learn.
You need to go to class.
I know, I do.
Let's do a couple social media here before we put a lid on this.
You don't want to get into some of those other comments. No worries. Okay, let's go here to social media here. We'll talk Padres with Mark, and he says, I'm not a Padre fan, but I respect anyone who tells nothing but the truth and doesn't sugarcoat the situation. That's love for the team and passion. Remember when the coach came out and said AJ had cards up his sleeve?
Well, AJ has done a lot of creative and dynamic things. And I have no problem with that at all. I think he's a really good player personnel evaluator. All you need to do is just go back on a year-by-year basis and check mark off guys that he found. That's pretty impressive. But by the same token, let us not ignore guys he's missed on and the amounts of money that he's paid the guys that he has missed on. That's pretty damn significant, the amount of money that he's blown through. I'll give you a prime example. You know, he signed Adrian Morion to an $11 million deal out of Cuba. And Adrian, because they were over the tax, that there was an $11 million tax. That's $22 million invested in Morion, who's what, 6th, 7th year in the organization? He's a one-inning pitcher because he had so many injuries. That's $22 million for a one-inning pitcher. He signed a Cuban outfielder by the name of Jorge Oña. $7 million plus a $7 million tax. That's a $14 million investment. He's out of baseball completely. There's like 4 or 5 other guys that he signed that he overpaid in the international draft. None of them got to the show, traded a bunch of them away. Cal Quantrill, overpaid him, number 1 pick out of Stanford. He was here. He's gone. I can figure that AJ spent $104 million on international players and high draft picks. He never got anything out of. So we can salute them for what they've done. They've built themselves a pennant contender. He's traded the farm system away. But let's also hold them accountable. That's a lot of money to burn through with no results at all. And Morion is the poster boy for mistakes. Now, can he pitch? Sure. He's a one-inning pitcher. You paid $22 million 6 or 7 years ago for a one-inning pitcher. It's not a difference maker. General manager has to be held accountable to a degree for that. And then you can add on what he gave Bogarts and what he gave Cronenworth and what he had to pay to get rid of Shields, what he had to pay to get rid of Hosmer. That's a ton of money with nothing to show for it. Am I right or am I right?
You're wrong.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
OJ, AJ, prior to, we loved Kevin Towers. He was a great GM, a great guy, but he was operating with pennies and nickels and pennies.
Right.
So when AJ came in, it was a new ownership. And I, as a Padre fan, I was thrilled that they were taking gambles, because if they just tried to play it conservatively in San Diego, we were doomed to be a third or fourth place team every year.
The Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, exactly. So they were willing to roll the dice. And I was like, great. And that one draft, it was the 2017 or 2016 international draft, right before they put the money cap on it. And AJ went all in. And that's why they got Morahone, who, by the way, used to be a starter, and he probably still could start, but he's had that injury problem. I mean, you're going to blame Preller for that? Granted, yeah, he missed like hell on Orionia, but he's hit gold on other candidates. And so there's a lot going on here, a lot of risk-taking, value, asset building value deep within the organization. And yeah, you'll blow them all out. And then, to your point, he has boots on the ground. He builds it back up. And he's like a poker player out there. And I couldn't be more happy. I mean, who would I rather have? I mean, granted, Friedman in LA is doing great things, but he's got a lot more resources to work with.
At the end of the day, and a lot of what you said has merit. A lot of what I said is true. Have you been to a World Series game yet in San Diego recently? No. So, I mean,
yeah,
that's the end. That's the end game.
That is the end.
And they haven't gotten there yet. And this window is right here. I think it's got to be done this year.
They were so close.
They're so close and didn't get away, and the window is closing.
But they're still a playoff team, in my opinion. So I think we're going to be all right.
Okay, let's do a couple more social media before we say sayonara.
Sayonara. Okay, and let's go here to the Talk Niners, and this is with Dean Henry. He goes, I wonder if Joey would want to come play for the 49ers and play with his brother, but he would have to take a substantial pay cut. But that would be great to see both of them on the D-line.
Well, I hear two things. He was in San Francisco on Sunday with the flurry of free agents. I don't know where the hell the NFL fans are. We haven't had hardly any NFL things. I would have thought people would have jumped on board to talk NFL draft and everything else. You're invited. You're a football fan. I heard two things. San Francisco, one, because of his brother being up there. Second, he's going to take a pay cut regardless of where he goes. The other one I just heard was the Miami Dolphins. As we were coming on the air today, I was told that he might be going to Miami for a visit too. And again, Miami's lost some players, so they might pay him. But Joey's not a $36 million player, not a $30 million player. I don't think he's a $25 million guy, only because of the injuries. Rock solid, good pass rusher, but not a true defensive end. And at the end of the day, he'll sign a contract. It'll be a lot less money. The question is, will he be able to stay on the field? Because he had injuries 7 of the 9 years he was here with the Chargers in San Diego and up in LA.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He had injuries, but it was time for the Chargers to turn the page, and here we are.
But here we are. Chargers are taking a couple hits. Holy cow. They get rid of Gus Edwards. They cut Joey Bosa. They just signed Khalil Mack. They signed him.
They got him.
1-year contract.
All right.
He took a pay cut to stay. I would have liked to see him tell Bosa, take a pay cut. Maybe they did and he refused. Take a pay cut. Pay for what? Play for what we're paying Khalil Mack. Mack just signed 1 year, $18 million. That happened just as I was coming on. So, but Bosa's gone, and now they just lost their top defensive tackle who just went across the street to the Rams, Poona Ford. So Chargers gotten out of the gate kind of slowly. I'm kind of surprised. I thought they'd be really active, but they haven't been.
Is Gus Edwards done? I mean,
he can't stay on the field. Injuries, knee and ankles.
Yeah, exactly. So again, I think another turn the page moment.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nature of the business.
Yeah. And they got cap space. Maybe they're being very selective, et cetera, or maybe they've gotten ambushed a little bit along the way. At least in the first group of hours when everybody was signing everybody. I mean, so many players have signed. There's like 30 players signed in the first 3 hours of free agency today. Just absolutely amazing. So we'll just see how active the Chargers get, because good players are coming off the board pretty quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Let's keep moving. Let's talk Angels. This is with Joe. He says, blame Moreno in a way that he understands. Do not attend Angel games. Do not buy Angel merchandise. Do not watch Angels games either on TV or streaming.
I guess I buy. I mean, there is a fans revolt right now against Artie Moreno's ownership, but give them credit. They were really active. They signed 28 street free agents. Well, if you find some gems out of here with the kids who have developed, you had a chance to be competitive. But they got a long way to go from 99 losses to be competitive. I don't, at this point, I don't see them being a 500 team, but anything's better than 99 losses. And at least they made a concerted effort to rent a lot of guys to see if they could buy some time till some more kids show up. We'll just have to see what happens with this collective group that they've got. They've got more young kids coming, but they're not all ready to play. They've already force-fed the O'Hoppes of the world, the Chanels of the world, and Zach Nato of the world. They need to get some more players in there that are going to be able to buy them some time.
I mean, obviously frustration with the Angels, but for me as a baseball fan, I enjoy following your team through thick and thin and going through the ups and downs. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to be buying a lot of tickets at the stadium. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be buying a lot of merch, but I'll watch the game. I'll listen on the radio. I'll pay attention to the news and I'll follow the team and I'll hope for good things because they're my team. And I go through the suffering and I go through the exaltations with them. And I think that's okay. So I'm not sure if I were a guy in Orange County, if I would be ready to boycott a team. They haven't reached that level.
Well, they guessed wrong on the amount of years and what they paid Pujols. Great man, but Pujols was on a downward track when he got here. They obviously made a catastrophic mistake with Josh Hamilton, the amount of money they gave to a guy who's got a drug problem he never kicked. Made a mistake on Vernon Wells, made a mistake on Justin Upton. So, I mean, that's a lot of money for guys that did absolutely nothing. And then you add on to what befell Rendon. And then you got all the drafts. And now you had Ohtani and didn't re-sign Ohtani, and you have Trout, and you've wasted Trout's best years. And I can't blame Trout. He's got hurt playing hard for you. But again, you've missed opportunities. So they haven't won a playoff game since 2009. You know how many curveballs ago that was? That was a long time.
Would you rather be like a Pittsburgh fan or an Angels fan? Because Pittsburgh doesn't spend the money.
Exactly.
But the Angels do. They spend the money.
But the owner's made so many mistakes. That's why he's being held accountable.
So which is more painful, I wonder?
They're both painful. So that's where we are. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our podcast. We apologize for some of the problems that we have had on X today. We're back in here Thursday. Boy, I can't wait for Thursday because there'll be more free agent signings to talk about. And then teams start to cut their rosters as we get ready to break camp. Dodgers and Cubs will be getting ready to open the National League season in Japan. We cover the waterfront. We do sports talk the way it should be done. This podcast is brought to you by Dixie Line Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Go to DixieLine.com and just see all the things they have to offer to you. John, great day. Tons of information. Take a deep breath because Thursday he'll be here and there'll be a lot more to talk about.
I'm looking forward to the Mountain West Conference basketball tournament.
And we'll cover that too. Thanks for being with us. Always have you along for the ride on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.